Hey, this is Elijah. If you're listening to this episode shortly after it's released, then this might make sense. If this is your first episode you've tuned into, then this means nothing. Or if you're listening to this way after it's released in the future, then this absolutely makes no sense. However, this episode was originally planned to be released on June 11th, 2025, and was recorded on June 13th, 2025. But due to various life circumstances between myself and Rex, things got backlogged, and releases were delayed indefinitely. Now we are back on track and happy to finally release this episode. While us, the hosts, will discuss the current, as of the recording, updates in our lives and what tokusatsu we've watched, the news segments have been removed entirely. So the episode will be slightly different. If you'd like to see the edited out content, leave us a message and we'll look into how to tackle that. But in the meantime, we hope you enjoy these episodes now available for everyone to listen to.
Atomic gigantification was a sweeping Japan nation when along came a dude with an ultra attitude, a Kamen Rider who's the greatest kicker of Japan. And of all, man, life's too short now, baby, to not talk big now, baby.
Broadcasting across the globe from Two Guys' Room, it's Kaiju Conversation. I'm your host, Elijah, and joining me, as always, my lovely co-host and editor.
Hello, I am Rex, joining us on this third and hopefully final take of the intro.
Hopefully. That is my dream. That is my hopes. Those are my desires. I would do anything to make that work.
Well, fortunately,
Please.
They seemingly have not been crushed. But there's still at least 2 hours, maybe more, for them to be absolutely and utterly decimated.
Never say never. You know, there could always be big booms.
Exactly.
Always
God,
look to
that
the
really
skies.
links to what we were talking about before, doesn't it?
I love how we occasionally just start the recording after we've been talking for like 15, 20 minutes. And somehow we still find a way to bring back what we were talking about before recording in vague, ominous ways.
Yeah, we have a talent about that, I guess.
We do. We love it. We love it here. We love doing vague, ominous, great things. Amazing things.
I'm not a fan of that guy personally. Keep away, Mr. Man. Keep away,
Mr. Man.
Mr. President.
Oh boy.
Man.
So, Rex, how have you been?
Good. Mostly exhausted.
You sound tired. Yeah.
I am. I just had a journey that should have taken less than an hour, take about 2.5, on top of like having to leave the place early, or not even early, like just having to like figure out what the hell's going on and to find a way to leave a place while there was like an alarm, a very loud alarm going off. Fun stuff, I can assure you.
It sounds like
The price of going to the movies, I guess, and having a
you went to
social
the
life.
movies?
Yes, I saw the new John Wick spinoff.
Oh, the ballerina?
Yes. It was pretty good.
Exciting.
It was pretty good. The action was really cool. I've never seen a literal firefight where two characters are fighting each other with flamethrowers and like they're lighting each other on fire and using the fire to like to set their own body on fire so that they can use it for kicks and stuff. It gets pretty crazy. I love John Wick's action. It's always great.
You know, that didn't make a whole lot of sense
if
I'm
you've seen
sure
the
it looked
movie,
really
you'd
cool.
understand.
Yeah.
And it looked
yeah.
like mostly practical too, which is insane.
Really?
Yeah, the John Wick movies are like mostly like stunt. They don't really rely on CGI too much.
Well, doesn't Keanu Reeves do all his own stunts?
Most of them.
Is
He doesn't
one
do
of
it with
those
them
people?
all. He doesn't do them all.
Gotcha.
I mean, Jackie claims to do them all. He doesn't. It's kind of well known that Jackie kind of lies about how much stunts he does in most his later movies.
I mean, you're Jackie. You can kind of do whatever you want, I feel like,
And
once
then
you're like...
screws over certain other arising martial artists / stunt actors in the process. Oopsie.
Okay, you win.
Yeah. Jackie Chan's an interesting guy. Great actor, director, and martial artist, but not necessarily the best person. On a hopefully much more excellent note.
Oh
how
my
have
god.
you been? You're welcome.
I was doing better before you made a yoke like that.
I'm very happy to hear that.
You sound like you're about to crack up over all these jokes.
I'm going to punch the monitor.
What are you, chicken, to just not punch me? But in all seriousness, I am done with Outer Man. Actually, so we did a photo gallery that I edited, and then we did a Outer Man Historia, which is the slideshow of the history of Outer Man, but it's an in-universe history. So I got to have some creative liberties there. And so I just kind of created this fictitious like history of how Outer Man came to be. And then in the film there's a list of all the Outer Man series. So I got that list and then I translated it and put that in there as well. So that was really cool. I enjoyed that a lot. There was some cool stuff, like there's an Outer Man Omega, which is really funny because like some of it predicted Ultraman's future titles.
Wasn't there a Shin Outer Man as well?
Yeah. And this was 2015 before Shin Godzilla was a thing.
I mean, the movie had been announced by this point.
No, so development of it began in November of 2014.
I mean, a new Godzilla movie was. I don't know when the title was announced. I don't know.
I'm pretty sure the title was April 1st.
I don't know.
Because I know there was something about...
Outer Man was shot in 2014, wasn't it? Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, it was December of 2014. Right. And then it was released in... It had its premiere in June or July. I forget.
I mean,
but
a Japanese movie having Shin in the title isn't something that was invented by Shin Godzilla.
Right. But it's still funny that like it did do that right before Shin Godzilla, and then of course we got Shin Evangelion, Shin Ultraman, Shin Kamen Rider.
I mean, Shin Evangelion, the other rebuild of Eva films were also had Shin in the title.
Really?
Yeah, they were all technically Shin Evangelion. It's just the last one, I think, is the only one that's just Shin Evangelion. Sometimes it's called Theatrical Edition. Sometimes
that's what I saw was Theatrical Edition.
Yeah, that's the full title, but it's usually that one's the only one that's usually abbreviated as just Shin Evangelion.
Gotcha. So, that at the end of the day, like that was really cool. I enjoyed doing the Outer Man Historia. And then, of course, we did the audio commentary that I got to interview Minoru Kawasaki on, which is really cool. Once you like, especially here, and I guess this is like where I can actually really explain like the coolness of it, because this show is quite literally the whole point of that. Like we have devoted like 3 years of months to celebrating and like exploring the filmography of Minoru Kawasaki. Like, we have covered every single film that's available in the US. Technically, we hadn't tackled Outer Man because Outer Man was available on Amazon Prime with English subtitles.
Right, but no physical release.
But no physical, so we ignored it. But, here we got to, it's kind of cool because the first Kawasaki title I work on is the one title that we couldn't technically do because of how we identify what we can pick for the show, which, that was really cool. And then it's also just the fact that, Outer Man is quite literally one of Kawasaki's, like, tentpole films.
Mm-hmm.
He put a lot into that, and I dive into all of that in the commentary. Like I said, Kawasaki was interviewed, so he's also featured in the commentary. So all of that's really exciting, and just the fact that, like, that's not the only one, because this is kind of a good segue. I am now working on Dennace Chaos, which is the culmination of Kawasaki's Dennace franchise, 35 years in the making. So I'm working on Dennace Chaos, and then they also included Dennace Kick and Dennace Q as bonus films in that release. And so those are going to be coming out, and I'll be doing some video introductions, a commentary, and whatnot there. So that's all really exciting.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to that. But that's where we're pretty much at with, like, SRS cinema work right now. But the fact that means by mid-July, I will have worked on 4 Minoru Kawasaki movies. You want to know what that means, Rex?
What? Oh.
It means that next April, you're going to be going live with Kawasaki Month. So, we kind of skipped out on April uploads this year, but I think that will end up benefiting us because that means next year we can do Kawasaki Month 4.0. I think it's 4.0.
I think it's 3.
Let me check. Thankfully, if you go to www.kaijuconversation.com, you can go to our episodes tab, and once you locate a certain series of our show, you can just select that tag and see all of the films that are tackled. It would be 3.0 because we have episodes 50. What?
I said I'm just that good.
Whew. But besides all that, I don't really have a lot of other things. I went to a art exhibit and they had some Japanese art. That was pretty cool.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, nothing like really awesome. Well, it was cool and awesome, but nothing like really notable that like I saw and I was like, "Oh, that's so cool." Just some typical Japanese artwork. Most of it was older. They had a huge amount of Chinese art, and that was really cool. Their Japanese stuff was like really and honestly like a fifth of what their Chinese stuff was.
I should go to an art exhibit sometime, see what's on. But I'd have to do that later.
If that's really all we have to talk about, which, I say that, and we've been talking for over 30 minutes at this point.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, Rex, do we want to finally get into Kaiju and Tokusatsu we've watched this year? Since our last recording?
Hell yeah.
Do you want me to go first?
Sure. Do you have anything?
So, I have 2.
Oh my god.
And then I have half.
That is a massive increase from most episodes.
So I watched the movie Egg from 2006. It's like this creature feature psychological horror movie. Low budget.
There's a few called Egg.
Yeah. So it's from Japan. EGG. It's decent. I think it could have been better. I ended up getting kind of underwhelmed by it, but it was entertaining to say the least. And then I rewatched Terror of Mechagodzilla for a episode with Nathan Marchand and Jack Hudgens for the Monster Island Film Vault. So I rewatched that. And then I've watched about 20 minutes of this 60-minute movie. You probably have heard of it. It's from 1920. It's called Der Golem.
Oh, right.
So, I don't know why, but I recently felt the urge to purchase a handful of German silent films from Kino Lorber. So I bought Metropolis, Nosferatu, The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, and The Golem.
You're saying it like it's not something base to do, you know?
So here's my one thing. I have struggled to watch silent films.
Because you're a fake film fan.
But I'm going to try. Here's the thing. So I started watching The Golem, but every time I do, no. So the first time I really shouldn't have because I was exhausted. And so I was like, I can't watch it. I'm tired. It was like 4 a.m. It's like, okay, what am I going to do? So after that, there was like 2 other attempts, but like something came up and I had to pause it and I just never got back to it. Yeah. But in one sitting, I have sat and watched about 22 minutes of it. It's color tinted, which is really cool. And then like it's really claustrophobic at some points. Like the cinematography is really cool. And the special effects, like I'm loving. Like the commentary that I have on while watching it says it's like primitive or something like that, but it's like, no, this looks cool. Like I really love this. So for anybody who, and I kind of want to do like an expose on this, like maybe this is something in the future like we could tackle, not necessarily a movie, but just like a bonus like expose. The Golem is the first reported horror movie franchise. There was one from 1915 called The Golem. And then from the commentary, they said that the second one, which is like The Golem and the Dancing Prince, The Golem's like a cameo. And those two are lost. The first one has like 11 minutes that have been found, and that's it.
Well, is this...
And then
if we're talking like first franchise, are we not counting short films? Or
I guess...
Because if we were counting short films, then Frankenstein, or I think even Dracula, would still beat it.
I think Frankenstein had 2.
Because Frankenstein, there's one from 1910.
But like franchise, like multiple movies. Like I'm pretty sure this was the first, from what my understanding, it's the first horror movie like franchise where like multiple films were produced. Because this predates Dracula and Frankenstein's second and third films.
Okay.
So I think that's the technicality. So
I guess in Dracula's case, it's like most of them were like I think there were 2 Dracula films by this point, but like they were from like completely different countries.
Well, Nosferatu was unauthorized, so I wouldn't count that one.
Sure, but there's also like I think it's like The Death of Dracula, I think it's called. And I think there's one more that came before Nosferatu as well. I just can't remember its name.
I know there was a 1910 Frankenstein. I know that one. I'm more educated in Frankenstein than I am Dracula, but I know like isn't the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari an adaptation
of Frankenstein?
Of Dracula?
Is it? This is news to me.
I don't know.
This is news to me.
Silent films is like a whole new like. I have no idea. German Expressionism, no idea. But I sound like a film snob the moment I say I watch German Expression. I will say the cool thing about
next you're going to be talking about your favorite Jean-Luc Godard movie.
No, I'll be talking French New Wave.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then Werner Herzog. Who
did a Nosferatu remake.
He did, and he did Beneath Loch Ness, which I do own.
And it might be the best version of Nosferatu, Loki.
I did watch the newest one. I need to watch the original, and then I'll watch his version.
Yeah, you should watch them both. I would say they're both better than the Angus version. I would say they're both a bit better.
I need to dive more into Dracula.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Especially since like most of my Dracula like is
the Universal?
No. Most of my like Dracula vampire
it's Japanese, that's right.
It's Japanese. Yeah.
Right, yeah. I remember now. Sorry. I should realize who I'm talking to.
I have seen the original Bela Lugosi Dracula.
Mm-hmm. Wait, have you not even seen its sequels?
I've seen the Spanish version.
Huh, right.
I've seen the original Dracula, and I've seen the Spanish version of Dracula, and then I've seen Nosferatu.
Right, okay.
The American one. And that's it. I do believe, I'm trying to look over here at like my generic films. I thought I had the Dracula. Oh, I do. I have the Universal Legacy Collection DVD, which I think it has Dracula's Daughters, and like one other one.
It would have Son of Dracula and House of Dracula.
Let me check. I'm literally.
It would have those because those are the main ones.
Well, I know that, but like the Wolfman one only has like 3. So Dracula.
I mean, the Wolfman one's because he's a guest star in like other movies.
Okay, yeah, you're right. It's those. I don't think this has the Spanish version. Oh, it does. It does. So, and honestly, part of me just wants to start watching all of the Universal monsters because the only one I'm only educated in one, and that's because he has a trilogy and then has like a cameo appearance in the Unlicensed Monster Squad movie. Which is obviously...
Wait. You haven't seen the Frankenstein movies?
I've seen... Okay, hold on. Because I've seen... Don't understand me here. I have seen some.
Have you at least seen the first 2?
It has been years since I've watched.
Have you seen the first 2?
So I've seen Dracula, Spanish Dracula. I've seen Frankenstein. I've seen The Mummy. I've seen The Invisible Man. I've seen Bride of Frankenstein.
Okay,
I've seen Son of Frankenstein. I've seen The Mummy's Hand. I've seen The Wolfman. I've seen The Ghost of Frankenstein. The Invisible Agent. Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman. Maybe The Mummy's Tomb. I've seen The Invisible Man's Revenge. The Mummy's Ghost. House of Frankenstein. The Mummy's Curse, perhaps. Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. Creature from the Black Lagoon. Revenge of the Creature. And The Creature Walks Among Us.
You've probably seen about maybe like 2 or 3 less than me. But like I haven't actually finished the Frankenstein. You've actually seen all the Frankenstein movies. Thank God. But I actually
and then
still
I've
have
seen
like 2 left.
The Last Voyage of the Demeter. So that's it. Does this have the...
I mean, you've seen most of the best ones at least.
See, but here's my thing is most of these I've seen on television that are edited. Via Svengoolie, which I love Svengoolie. Like, thank God he's shown them. I own the werewolf movies, The Wolfman. I've got on this DVD, I have Werewolf of London, Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, and The She-Wolf of London.
Mm-hmm.
So I have like a handful more I could watch. Honestly, what I probably should do is I should probably just invest in like the big box sets. But I'm pretty sure if I just watch out, they usually have like a huge sale on that like every year. That where it's like 50% off. I'm trying to. Oh yeah, there's this limited edition 4K set that's got like it's in a book. It's just like the Godzilla set. It's in a giant book, and it's in 4K. It's only 130. That's not bad. And it's got. Let's see. Oh, it's only got 8 movies. It's got Dracula with the Spanish Dracula. It's got Frankenstein, The Mummy. Oh, no, I'm not going to buy this. This isn't worth it. It's only, I guess the Blu-ray then would be it. It's a 30 film collection for $50. Or, oh no, it's $83 for the 30 films.
I mean, that's not bad, all things considered.
No. But Rex, what kaiju and tokusatsu have you watched since our last recording?
As for my tokusatsu watching, I'm afraid to say that actual tokusatsu, it's kind of debatable. I did see some stuff with kaiju that aren't necessarily kaiju movies. Like, I was at the cinema not too long ago to see Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind.
Okay, that counts.
The Ghibli film with the giant god warriors, and also like one of the first movies Hideaki Anno worked on. Because he animated the God Warrior.
Yeah.
I rewatched a Gareth Edwards movie, actually, titled
Monsters?
No, but I did watch that for the first time earlier this year. No, I rewatched Rogue One, A Star Wars Story.
Oh, nice.
Gareth Edwards, I guess he can make good movies. What happened with Godzilla? Or is it
Max
or perhaps it's the reshoots that saved Rogue One?
I've heard that it was the reshoots.
I've heard that when they got Tony Gilroy, the writer of Andor, involved, that it got a lot better.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty good. Kind of bloated though. The last hour of the movie is dedicated to like the Scarif battle, and like it's well shot, but it kind of becomes really boring at a certain point. Because it's just action, and I don't care enough about these characters.
Right, and we already know that they're all going to die.
Yeah.
Because we've seen the movies that came out after.
I mean, I didn't know when it came out in theaters. That surprised me in theaters. But yeah. Giant monster adjacent. I watched Predator Killer of Killers. That had a giant monster.
How was that?
It was pretty good. I'm very excited for the next Predator movie as well, of course. Dan Trachtenberg continues to cook. Even if this one perhaps could have used a longer runtime to come a bit more together, but no, it was still good fun. We love some Predator action. And hey, Michael Biehn has finally joined the ranks alongside Bill Paxton and Lance Henriksen. And outside of that, I also watched The Angry Red Planet. I almost forgot about that, actually.
Angry Red Planet. I know that movie.
It's the
Isn't that 60s?
Late 50s,
yeah.
59 sci-fi movie that has like the giant bat rat spider thing, and there's like another slug like monster thing and like a Venus flytrap thing as well. It was pretty decent. It's pretty decent. And then lastly, giant monster kaiju, specifically adjacent. I have recently been taking a break from Gundam to watch the Patlabor series.
Okay.
So I've watched the Patlabor Early Days OVA. I've seen the first movie, and I just recently finished Patlabor on TV and started its sequel show.
Have you haven't started the Mamoru Oshii live action series, have you?
Not the live action series, no, because that's a bit later. That's set like after Pat Labor 2 and 3. But Mamorushi did direct Pat Labor 1, the movie, and like worked on the OVA and show.
Oh,
yeah,
I didn't know that.
As did a certain Kazunori Ito, which, if that name sounds familiar to you, it's because he wrote a couple little movies called the Heisei Gamera trilogy.
Ah, there we go. No, the live action Pat Labor films have been on my radar recently.
I'm really curious to check them out, but I don't know if I'd like them that much because they don't have the cast that I love.
That's fair.
But yeah, I bring up Pat Labor because, to my pleasant surprise, there have been more kaiju in it than I expected. Not a huge amount, but like...
I know that the live action films, one of the episodes has a kaiju in it.
So, believe it or not, from the very first Pat Labor anime, the early days OVA, there's an episode that is a dedicated Godzilla parody.
Really?
Yeah. Episode 3 is a full-on Godzilla parody where there's like vehicles are disappearing and there's reports of like maybe like a sea monster or something, and no one's really sure what's going on. There's a scientist with an eye patch named Dr. Hirata, who I'm sure you can best guess that he's based off Dr. Serizawa. And also, surprisingly enough, I think also Dr. Mifune.
Really?
Yeah, because he has basically Dr. Mifune's backstory.
Huh.
Of like being kicked out because of his beliefs around like a dinosaur thing. And yeah, like the plot is kind of, in a strange way, it almost feels like a proto Shin Godzilla, actually. Because like,
really?
Yeah, so I thought that the episode, it was going to be like, oh, they think there's this giant monster, but then at the end, it's going to be revealed to be like a Labor, one of the giant robots, right? That's actually like causing like the disappearance of like ships or whatever was happening. But no, the twist of the episode is yes, there's a real kaiju. Yeah, for all intents and purposes, they've been hunting down a Godzilla monster, like monster that literally looks like Godzilla.
Really?
But the twist is, it evolves. So when you see it, when you finally see it at the end of the episode, it doesn't actually look like Godzilla. It actually looks like Gyro.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it's evolved like a human-like face, which in the most bizarre twist possible, its face resembles one of the cast members of the police team. It's a really bizarre ending. Yeah, it's really bizarre, but it's pretty funny.
So in the live action films, it's like a kappa. Like there's a giant kappa monster. And it shows up in 2 of the episodes because it's kind of like split up between episodes or something.
Right.
Which, fun fact about those live action films, the first 2 of those were directed by Kiyotaka Taguchi. Director of Daikaiju Bugun. So that's pretty cool to me.
Yeah. Pat Labor is really cool. And yeah, Pat Labor on TV continues by having a handful of kaiju episodes. Actually, what's funny about that Godzilla parody is that I think it kind of makes the next episode of Early Days way funnier because like because the show has just completely shattered my expectations of this is a real robot type anime where things are going to be grounded and realistic. Now when we have the possibility of ghosts, when it's revealed that it's actually not ghosts, it actually feels like a twist.
Really?
Yeah. Which is even funnier when the TV show confirms that, yes, ghosts actually do exist in the Pat Labor world. It's great. And yeah, the TV show has 2 episodes with some kaiju. There's one that's like this, I think I think both of those episodes are written by Kazunori Ito as well, the Gamera writer, because there's one where it's like an experimental creature from a lab that looks like a mole, bear, dog hybrid thing is like in the forest and they have to fight it. And then there's one episode where like an ancient dragon that's like evolved / mutated in like the sewers over time or something appears.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's another episode that it doesn't feel like a kaiju episode. It's not a kaiju episode, but it's not written by Kazunori Ito, but it almost feels like a precursor to... It almost felt like a Gamera 3 precursor to me. It probably isn't.
Really?
But, because it explores like a very similar conflict to Ayana in Gamera 3, where like there's this kid whose house was destroyed by the Pat Labor robot, the Ingrams. And so it's kind of a similar conflict to Ayana in Gamera 3 almost. I don't necessarily know if it had any influence because it wasn't written by Kazunori Ito, but he was like the main writer for the series as a whole. So I don't know, but I thought it was really interesting. And there's also one episode that has like a little bit of an Aliens parody too.
Really?
Yeah, they have like the full-on motion tracker from Aliens. No, Pat Labor's been really fun getting into. I really enjoy it. On that topic of lineage and films prior to 1954, I feel like today's episode we might be talking about a film along those lines.
We were supposed to watch a movie, weren't we?
Yeah. Did you not do your homework?
I got wrapped up in like golems.
Did
vampires.
Did the dog chew on your disc or something?
Yeah. Dog ate my disc.
Yeah, do you know what disc the dog ate?
No, it was a disc.
So it could have been any movie, not necessarily the movie.
Anything.
So not necessarily the movie I assigned you to watch.
You assigned me to watch a movie? Since when?
Yeah. Don't you remember?
I'm pretty sure it's usually like, hey, can we do this? And you're like, yeah, sure, whatever. Just make sure I have the movie. And then you leave me alone and you never say anything else.
What is a slander?
It's never like, oh, hey, Elijah, here's a movie I would love to cover on the podcast. I think it would be great.
Slander? I am hearing...
You never write, you never call. You're just like Dave, the man in the moon.
Literally, I remember in the Viras episode, you act like we'd only talked 3 times in the year, and that was just objectively wrong.
Okay, I'm sorry that my memory sucks booty.
Yeah, do better.
But you know I'm not wrong.
But you are. This is slander.
You're saying nothing to prove me wrong. What are we talking about?
Mighty Joe Young from 1949.
That movie?
Yeah, the one with the big ape, you know?
Yeah, where they take it from its natural home to a city.
Yeah.
And it's shown, and then it gets released.
And it stars Robert Armstrong.
And there's a woman involved.
Yeah.
And a romance plot that doesn't really go anywhere.
Yeah. Except this time she's underage.
We'll let that set for a second. We'll come back to that. I mean,
yeah. That is crazy. It really was a different time.
Where do we want to start here?
I say we got to start at the beginning, which means we got to go back to King Kong, I'm afraid.
So I don't think by the point of covering King Kong and Son of Kong, we kind of had settled on our formatting. So
yeah,
if you want to, like, I implore you to go back and listen to those, but I don't believe they're going to be the same. I know King Kong 33 I tackled with Nathan.
Mm-hmm.
And Son of Kong was you and I. That was actually one of our first like films of like really starting to figure out what we're doing.
Yeah.
I think, if I remember right. That was a while ago, a couple of years ago. So
only a couple. I think it was more than a couple.
It was like 3 years ago,
4
years ago, maybe.
Jesus Christ.
So if you want to, you can go back and listen to those. We've covered every King Kong movie up until King Kong Lives, 1986. And then we talked about Godzilla Kong, The New Empire. So, and we've talked about Godzilla versus Kong, but not in the same. Well, yeah, I've talked about Godzilla versus Kong. You can go back and listen to those episodes if you want to hear a little bit more of the lineage behind this than what we'll talk about here. But King Kong 33 came out, amazing film. It was the biggest film of the year. They pushed to actually get it acknowledged in the Academy Awards that year. The Academy said no. It was like height of the Depression, and that movie still did numbers. You had Ernest B. Schoedsack, Marion C. Cooper helming it, and the film just was unheard of. Before King Kong 33, if you want to trace that lineage back even further, you have 1925's The Lost World,
right?
A adaptation of
Arthur Conan Doyle's book.
Yeah, Arthur Conan Doyle's book, with Professor Challenger going to the Arctic, going into the Earth, finding... Right? No. It's an island, right? It's an island.
I don't entirely remember. I've seen it, but I don't remember.
I think I'm getting Jules Verne's Journey to
the Center of the Earth.
Doyle's. Yeah, I think I'm getting them mixed. So The Lost World is an island, and this guy named Professor Challenger goes to this island with some people. They find dinosaurs. They bring a brontosaurus back to London. It terrorizes London and then swims home.
Yeah.
The original, it's a silent film. I actually still need to get that one. I definitely want to. So, The Lost World was a huge hit in 1925. That was the first of its kind. They were going to do a film called Creation, but a lack of interest just made it so it didn't happen. And then we had King Kong. And then King Kong did exceptionally well. And from there, they decide to produce a sequel.
The rushed out in 6 months, Son of Kong, which unfortunately did not do anywhere near as well as its predecessor. I believe Marion C. Cooper wanted it to be a much bigger film that surpassed the original, but ultimately budget cuts and whatnot prevented that from happening. But that didn't stop Cooper from trying to create a third King Kong film, actually, like pretty shortly after. I want to say, was it 35 or 36?
I think it was 35.
Yeah. Was Cooper came up with the idea for a third King Kong film that would have been set in between events of the original movie. Specifically, like, during Kong's journey to New York, the ship would land on this other island, and they'd set Kong free briefly to help them fight off some other beasts before having to recapture him again, essentially. Which, based on that description, I can kind of see why it didn't get made.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure there was a handful of other, like, stories that were floating around.
Yeah, a few years later, there was the King Kong vs. Tarzan idea after King Kong's 1938 re-release.
So King Kong was very much so Brian was actively trying to do something with it. Marion C. Cooper was, RKO was. There was a lot of cooks in the kitchen trying to bring back King Kong. I mean,
really, it's from what I read, it was more that RKO just was kind of the one that was shutting it down, because like they specifically didn't. The reason the third like the in between King Kong movie was because of the lack of interest from RKO and basically most people other than Marion C. Cooper, pretty much.
Right. It's kind of interesting because RKO was also supposed to be the one behind Creation.
Mm-hmm.
And they just said, it's not interesting enough. We're not going to do it. It's wild to think that like RKO consistently just wasn't interested. Like these films just didn't pique their interest.
Right. I mean, that's going to come back to it with another film that I'm sure we'll mention in a minute that has a similar story to Mighty Joe Young and King Kong. In spite of the failure of any real pushing of a new King Kong film, Marion C. Cooper would continue, obviously, producing films and always trying to surpass King Kong. As far as I understand, pretty much ever since, it's like he always wanted to one-up King Kong, but never really did, necessarily. He wanted to innovate a lot with like color films, becoming a VP for a company specifically so that he could work on color films, but then they would all have their budget slashed and whatnot, and basically become failures in his mind. There was the War Eagles project that had Willis O'Brien involved. But War Eagles was essentially like planned as this other new action adventure spectacle to surpass King Kong, with like this Viking tribe that had all these war eagles that would like these giant eagles that they would ride on to fight like ape men who would sacrifice women to prehistoric monster or dinosaurs, and then at the end they'd fight the Nazis.
So just as a quick thing, Willis O'Brien was attached to do the special effects. Marion C. Cooper was the producer and director and writer, and it got into pre-production.
Yeah. They were working on it for like a good year or so, but then World War II happened, and Marion C. Cooper went into the war, so that was on hold. So Willis O'Brien couldn't really work on it, so but he still wanted to make something, so he began coming up with the idea for Gwangi, a dinosaur film that would eventually formulate without him in Harryhausen's Valley of Gwangi. But the original Gwangi idea from O'Brien was essentially just a general story of, obviously, dinosaurs in a Western setting, captured by the cowboys and put on display and fighting and being forced to fight lions. Ideas that would end up coming into Mighty Joe Young.
I do think it's very important to note that here and highlight the similarities that they do have.
I mean, they both already have similarities by basically being retellings of the King Kong story. But like I very much thought the lion thing was pretty interesting. And if you've seen Gwangi, you know that like Gwangi is put to fight an elephant in like this like arena, and in Mighty Joe Young there was like a scrapped idea of Mighty Joe being put into like a coliseum to fight. I think it was just lions, was it?
I think so.
There was like a scrap scene of him like fighting another gorilla as well and whatnot. Unfortunately, Gwangi got rejected because the public or like a union thing didn't think it was an interesting film that would particularly sell well, which I guess they ended up being right because the Valley of Gwangi failed at the box office, and War Eagles fell through because after World War II, some sources say it's because the concept seemed a bit dated, particularly with the whole Nazi battle at the end. But other sources say it was just after the World War II, O'Brien and Cooper had just lost interest in the project.
Mighty Joe really started in the mid-40s. After the war ended, that's when things started to go back to where they were. There's a lot of dates for this movie, but it seems like 1946 was really when the film started production, or pre-production specifically. And so before we even talk about that, the producers of this film, there's only one technical producer, and that being Marion C. Cooper. But in the early phase of Mighty Joe's life, you had John Ford attached as a producer. John Ford is probably one of the most iconic and hailed film directors of all time.
Yeah.
He was especially known for making Westerns. So it makes sense that he would be attached to this film because of the Western influences very clearly in the film and very clearly in Guanji as well. So by the time that you understand the story elements, it makes sense why John Ford would probably be attached to this. If you said, hey, we're going to do a Western, but it's going to be King Kong. It's the Western take on King Kong. That just sounds perfect for somebody such as John Ford to be involved with. The development of the film seemingly began in 1946 when I read specifically around the time of when Ray Harryhausen was hired by Willis O'Brien. Harryhausen helped cutting frames, mounting storyboards, copy typing, and he would attend story meetings with Willis O'Brien, with Marion C. Cooper and Ernest B. Shodezak on the development of Mighty Joe. And the film originally was going to be a color film. When they were trying to determine the budget, at one point Jill was supposed to be more like Tarzan-like. There was some ideas that were just kind of thrown around, and just a lot of development. It went through plenty working titles like African Cowboy, The Last Safari, Mr. Joseph Young of Africa, The Great Joe Young. The production company behind the film, Arco Inc., was formed by RKO Pictures and Argosy Pictures for this film specifically, as it was kind of a co-production between the two, RKO being the home of King Kong and Argosy Pictures being John Ford's company. The film actually seemingly had a very long pre-production time because it began in 1946 and filming didn't start until the end of 1947, from what I could understand. And once you consider the film came out in 1949, it's okay, so this film had a 3.5 year roughly long production time, which is a lot longer than Son of Kong or even King Kong, to my understanding. I mean, King Kong's ideas started in the early 30s, but not to the point of we're developing this film. It was just ideas. I think that in of itself is an interesting thing, because at the end of the day, what I think really hurts the overall, I mean, you have Willis O'Brien, you have Ray Harryhausen, you have Ernest B. Shodezak, you have Marion C. Cooper, you have John Ford, you have the writer of King Kong, you have a dream team, you've got
Robert Armstrong here as well.
Yeah, exactly. You've got Robert Armstrong in one of the leading roles. It's a adventure film, it's a drama, it's a Western film. All of those were popular at this point. So you have, and it's got RKO backing it. You have a perfect combination of people and artists to create a amazing film. But the problem is the budget kept running the production into the ground. And we'll talk about that as we get through to the actual release of the film. But that's just something I found really interesting, is just how much the budget is like well brought up and discussed. Filming began mid-December of 1947, and it went until March of 1948. So for that context, mid-1946 is when pre-production really started. So that means they had about a year and a half to develop the story and the storyboards and the screenplay. And then you had 4-ish months, a little bit more, a little bit less, of filming. Apparently it took 9 months total to shoot. And then so I'm going to guess that's like reshoots and insert shots and whatnot, B-roll. And apparently the number is like 14 months of animating. And it makes sense, So that's, if in theory, if they started filming in December of 47, that means filming for the stop motion would go all the way up until roughly March of 1949, right? So that's roughly 4 months prior to the release date, which tracks. 4 months is probably about the time you wanted to start promoting it and really like making it known that this is a film coming out. So in that regards, it makes sense. So what's even more interesting is after the drama stuff was shot and the animating was like well into production and whatnot, they ordered a sequel to this film. RKO asked Marion C. Cooper to do a sequel. It was I think it was Cooper. It might have been Shodazak, but they were like, let's do a sequel. We'll talk about that afterwards. But I do think it was interesting that it seems like they were anticipating a King Kong repeat here, right? If they were ordering a sequel before the film came out, it sounds like they were kind of wanting to do a turnaround similar to that of King Kong, the Son of Kong, but with a better sequel than what Son of Kong ended up being.
I mean, that makes sense given how the film's marketed. Like a lot of the advertisements, it basically is just trying to bank on this being the next King Kong, essentially. Exaggerating the monster of Joe Young when really, I'd argue he barely even counts as a giant monster.
I agree. I think that's something that's really important to note is, like, even now today, like, the film is bundled with King Kong and Son of Kong. But besides the people obviously like involved in production and the fact it's a slightly larger ape, like it's like 10 feet tall.
Mm-hmm.
Technically. That's what, like 3 feet taller than a normal ape.
Right, which really could just come down to like either not
really
knowing
good genetics.
Yeah, really good genetics, and just the crew not necessarily knowing how big an ape is as well.
It's like something that, like, I feel like this has less of a in the context of talking about giant monsters. I think there is a constant back and forth on what counts. What's considered a giant monster, and what do we sit here and say, oh yeah, this is a giant monster? You know, the concept of like, well, the movie Tarantula has a giant spider in it, way larger than it should be. That counts. I agree. But do you count a film like Cujo, where it's just a Saint Bernard that's gone crazy, or like Empire of the Ants or Kingdom of the Spiders, where it's just these animals go crazy, right? And then you get to movies like orca, killer whale, or Jaws, right? Orca is a normal-sized orca. It's just on a rampage. Jaws is a larger great white than normal.
How many people consider Jaws a giant monster movie,
Right. That being said, it definitely has its spot in the context of monster movies because Jaws influenced...
Right, I mean, they're still creature features, regardless.
And it kind of goes back to my whole, proto-kaiju, proto-monster movies. Because you do have stuff like the Golem, where, the Golem's not a monster. It's this supernatural being that is a religious character that comes and saves, the Jews. But that helped influence, Frankenstein. That helped influence Daimajin, and the list goes on and on. So it's okay, so this stuff continues to help influence and bring the concept of monster movies, giant monster movies, kaiju movies further into what we know them today.
It's interesting on that sort of topic of what counts as a giant monster movie. It's worth it, or a kaiju. It's also worth noting that King Kong, something that really separates Mighty Joe from King Kong is the realism of Mighty Joe. Not only is Mighty Joe a lot less fantastical than the marketing makes it seem in terms of his size being closer to a real gorilla than King Kong, of course, but also his design and the way he's animated is also a lot more realistic. Of course, that does come down to the fact that, there was a bit more understanding of gorillas at this time. But I think something that really does make King Kong unique and everlasting as one of the most iconic monsters is that unnaturalness, that unnatural element to King Kong. He isn't just a gorilla. He doesn't move like a gorilla. He doesn't look just like a gorilla.
It's also, I think, on that note, I think it's very important to bring up examples of why future King Kong movies didn't work out. I know that the biggest complaint I hear about King Kong 2005, right, there's nothing really differentiating him from just a giant gorilla.
And they're right about that complaint.
And that's something that, I think is important to note, because if that's an actual complaint, then what is King Kong? He's not a giant gorilla. He is different. He is something unique. He is something that stands the test of time, that stands out in the context and concept of giant monsters. And perhaps that's an issue that, if I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, creates a problem in the world of modern day fans complaining about Godzilla and Kong fighting and whatnot. Kong's just a giant gorilla or a big monkey. Well, not really. That's something that perhaps as time has gone on with films like the Peter Jackson movie, the idea behind Kong being more than just a giant gorilla has been lost. I just it's very obvious in the original King Kong, Kong is not just a giant gorilla. But in modern context, it seems like that's something people like to say way more than they used to.
I mean, which is kind of ironic because I feel like King Kong, when it came out, would have been more like what the public imagined a gorilla to be like, because the public didn't really know what a gorilla was like until years later. I think in my research for King Kong, I think there were either no gorillas in zoos or there were like very, very few at the time of the original King Kong. So that sort of distinction between King Kong and a gorilla was less defined when the films came out compared to now, where we have a far better understanding of animals like gorillas and all sorts of apes compared to when King Kong came out. So the difference between the real distinctions between how King Kong behaves, looks, how he moves, is something that is a lot more obvious to us in a modern perspective when looking at like the original King Kong.
Right. And perhaps it's just a level of like that blissful ignorance that ended up, as time has gone on, it's become honestly more of a benefit than anything else, you know? The fact that they weren't entirely sure what they were doing back in 1933 ended up making a character that was more iconic than what it eventually was. All of this is just very interesting, like technicalities and just like looking at it in hindsight, like what it really brought to the table, you know?
I think it really shows how age kind of worked to the advantage of King Kong as a character. I'm kind of interested in transitioning into the actual film.
I do think it's really funny here. Not only do we get our opening credits, but the music is very King Kong-esque, which I think that's 110% like a intentional, like, and as the film goes on, that King Kong-esque score goes away. It loses all of that and it transforms into its own thing. And I think that 110% was just mostly to kind of lead on the idea of, oh, these are like, this is a King Kong-esque movie. It kind of leads on the audience for I'd say about 20 minutes of the film.
I didn't really notice the transition necessarily, but I definitely noticed early on that it did sound very King Kong-esque.
So another interesting thing I noticed is the whole, and you know, this has been a conversation in modern day where they're talking about, you know, giving the monsters their own personalities. And I do think it's really nice that in the credits here, they do have a Mr. Joseph Young as himself.
Oh, Mr. Joseph Young as himself. I feel like that must be the first instance of that.
It's gotta be. There's no way it's not. And I think that is the first bit of like the inkling of, okay, so this is a film that's going to really make you understand and like watch the monster in a way that's not really a monster, but more so a character in the film.
I mean, the film itself really, contrary to the marketing and kind of how we've been talking about Mighty Joe, he has his monstrous moments, but he is not really portrayed like a giant monster. Certainly not the same way as King Kong was.
Absolutely.
He is portrayed almost, he pretty much is just exclusively played as just a wild animal, which comes back to, should this even be counted as a giant monster film?
Okay, so do we want to actually tackle that now, or do we want to tackle that at the end of the?
Let's maybe go a little later on that discussion.
We'll put a pin on that because I like that is such a topic that I've wanted to talk to you about. I think that's just such an important thing to address and really kind of dive into. I do want to bring up the fact that we get some beautiful. So this is all just generic like B-roll footage of people walking and moving and nothing. There's nothing here that's like worthy of note.
Right. It's pretty so unworthy that they reuse the footage later in the movie.
But we do get something that I love, and that is the matte paintings.
Oh, yes.
The matte paintings of this film are absolutely beautiful.
I mean, pretty unsurprisingly, the effects work as a whole. And also the cinematography, too, it can be really nice. Sometimes it's a little flat, but there's also just some really, really nice compositions, particularly in like the nightclub set. I think they really use that location well.
I agree wholeheartedly. That was something I noticed. Is there's some nice framing, nice.
Yes.
It really shows. So I guess I can bring this up now. This is probably the largest team that O'Brien had on a film.
Yeah. There
was 47 technicians.
Which is more than he wanted to work with him, but I believe it was union rules that basically forced him to hire as many people as he did.
Right. And I think that also, when I heard that, that's when I really realized something. When you look into the film and you understand like how heavy, like this was Ray Harryhausen's first film. He ended up being the one who did basically all the animation himself. You look into, the film's success, you realize Ernest B. Schoedsack during production was going blind. He needed somebody to tell him what was going on so he could direct. You see, like, after this, there really wasn't a film of this type that RKO produced. This film is an attempt of making a 1930s movie in the 40s, almost 50s by the end of at the time it came out. Like there was less than half a year until the 1950s.
It's kind of interesting you bring it up because something I was kind of thinking about while we were talking, I kind of thought of a little bit earlier as we were talking about the movie, because we brought up the Universal monsters earlier. It's kind of interesting to think that this is often like referred to as like a more family friendly take on King Kong. It's a lot less violent. There's no human deaths in this film. Mighty Joe doesn't eat any people like King Kong did, which is interesting because this is also like the time. I believe this is the time of the Hays Code. I know the Universal monster movies. I don't know if the Hays Code. I think it was still in effect by this point in time, but the Universal monster movies were becoming maybe not necessarily kid friendly, but certainly less violent and horrifying than necessarily like the original Frankenstein or Dracula and whatnot. So I think that's also interesting to think about.
Absolutely. Yeah. I really feel like this film is, I brought it up with Clash of the Titans whenever I tackled that movie with Nathan. That film really felt like a 1960s movie released in 1981. And this feels like a 1930s movie released and stuff like that. It's just, it really goes to show like, and I mean, they did want to do stuff like it was supposed to be a color movie. Yeah. And I mean, but we ended up getting color tinted film, which is a 1920s thing. That wasn't, I mean, it was used occasionally.
I mean, there's other there's other like 50s, 40s, 50s monster movies that do that, like Angry Red Planet that I mentioned earlier. Like that does basically the same things, except a bit more for an extended period of time.
But correct me if I'm wrong, but Angry Red Planet is very much a B movie.
Sure, I guess, yeah.
And I mean, for here as well, Mighty Joe was the budget, but it's RKO. It's the people behind King Kong, like no expenses spared, was played off as a huge movie. And you're doing color tinting It just, stuff like that, it just, to me, it just kind of gives the film more of the feeling of, okay, we're not showing you a big film where we're cutting costs. We're doing stuff like that. And I think the whole concept of the cowboys and the ape, I think, is an idea that should have worked in the 50s. I think that concept is still very much okay, that can work. But the whole, we're going to, the idea of the adventure movies. I think by this point, the adventure films of going to a exotic location and finding animals, not even creatures, animals, finding animals was over. And that seems to be a major influence on Mighty Joe.
Yeah, that whole adventure element is kind of missing from the film, really.
It's glossed over.
Right, because, all the adventure really is, and I guess we'll get back into the film here, is it's a small, there's a small venture into Africa. And that's really, really it.
And it comes after we do get the introduction to Jill as a kid, and she barters a flashlight and some jewelry and some money for this ape.
Yeah.
Which, it's cute, but it's also okay, why is she left alone? If she's just casually asking,
this is the 30s or 40s. A parent leaving their child alone at this point in time isn't exactly anywhere near
on a farm in Africa.
I think it's believable.
Either way, I do like the follow up where the father's oh no, no, gorilla.
But then he just gives up.
Which I can also believe that. That definitely is a parent thing. All of that's, I think the father here, I kind of wish we could have seen more of the father and daughter with the gorilla thing. I feel that would be a fun story.
I certainly think it would be more interesting than the romance of the film.
Yeah. And see, even the idea of the father not wanting Jill to take Joe, and then they come back after. There's so much you could have done with that. I feel that would have been so much more interesting. I think the dynamics there are really cool. And so bear in mind, Jill is 7 years old. So, okay, that's the thing is the credits that I looked at say that Jill is 7 years old, or the actress at the time was 7 when she played this character. After this exchange, we jump 13 years into the future. Is it 12? Okay. So if she was 7 at this time, she's going to be 19 when the film takes place, which doesn't make sense because they say that she's under 18 in the film.
Yes.
The age of Terry Moore, so she was born in 1929, so she was 20. So that makes sense as well, from the actress who played the young Jill to the actress that played present day Jill to the time jump. It all points to her being 19 or 20. It really doesn't matter, but it also is really weird that everything points to her being 19, and they go out of their way to make her, a minor.
And then give her this romance with an actor 10 years her senior.
There's a lot of weird things about the whole aspect of her age. And the fact that it's brought up makes it even weirder.
I think you got to remember that this was a time where that was really common as well. It was nowhere near uncommon for a 16-year-old girl to be marrying a man well into his 20s. That, unfortunately, was not uncommon in any capacity at this time.
But the only reason that I can think it's remotely important to bring up that she's underage is so that the contract is non-binding.
Well, yeah, I think that's exactly the reason why it's brought up.
But he still takes advantage of them for another 2.5 months, essentially. So he wasn't planning on changing anything, and they were trying a new act by the end of the film. So it's like, okay, so even though you say that the contract is non-binding, he still finds a way to use Jill and Joe.
I mean, yeah, because he convinces her to stay with
right. He guilts her.
Yeah.
But it's just, if you're going to make it a point to say that the contract's not binding, why do you then go and have him convince her to stay? And then he has a redemption arc after. I really don't appreciate, I don't like how the characters in this film are written. It feels like everybody's positive.
Yeah, the characters outside of Mighty Joe himself, the characters just kind of suck. Robert Armstrong is fun because he's basically just doing Carl Denham again, but the redemption arc comes out of nowhere.
And that's what I love about Carl Denham is like he's such a bombastic, big, larger than life character. Like that's why Carl Denham co-stars with King Kong.
Mm-hmm.
And I guarantee you that was the direction he was given is you are co-starring with this giant gorilla. Make yourself bigger than him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why you have when you see him saying we'll be millionaires, boys. I'll share with all of you. It'll be up in lights in Broadway. King Kong, the eighth wonder of the world. He's screaming and he's like if I remember right, he throws his arms out and he's expressing himself in to the camera.
Yeah, I mean, he even has a very as your impression I think shows, he has a very distinctive voice as well.
So for King Kong, he's this larger than life businessman, and we see that here again as well with what's his name, O'Hara. He's a businessman, he's a showman. Here we get Carl Denham, but there's no development for the character. He's this larger than life show businessman who wants to get into the show business, and he just does, and then he exploits, and then he's just like, we're gonna send you back, and then he helps them, and then that's it. And there's no clear change.
I mean, that's kind of a thing with the script is sometimes, particularly with its ending, sometimes things are just kind of happening with very little setup to them. There's no real setup to this redemption arc. It just happens. There's absolutely zero setup for the burning building at the end. It just happens. But speaking of Teemu Carl Denham, as you said, 12 years later is when we meet him, and he's trying to get into the show business. And as we're also introduced to Cowboy Man Greg, as they're all planning a trip to go to Africa to look for some animals for the nightclub that Mr. O'Hara is setting up.
Which I will give him this. I didn't realize it was Robert Armstrong initially. I think it's the mustache. The mustache does a lot for him. And the haircut. The haircut's wild.
The voice is what gives it away, I think, to me. Is what made me realize.
And what I think's really wild is we have this setup where he's like, I'm going to Africa. We got to find people. Oh, here's this guy. He wants in. Let's bring him. And then it's just, we're in Africa. And it's well into this is at the very end. They're about to go home.
Right. So we've skipped that whole element that King Kong have of this exploration of the Skull Island.
Right.
Where, we've just been in Africa for a few weeks. We're packing up and leaving. The only real adventure bit missing is that, Max O'Hara, he's enjoyed everything that he's seen, but feels like he hasn't quite found that big thing he needs.
And we also learned that he's been reporting back to the presses his adventure, and it's really just him over exaggerating what's going on. Which I will say this, I think that's a really fun element of how he uses the press to bolster what's actually happening. So stuff like that's really like nice to see.
A lot of this opening act of the film, beyond the special effects footage, I didn't find it all that particularly interesting or exciting.
Yeah, it just kind of felt like stuff was happening.
Yeah.
Like I noticed in my notes, like I didn't start writing notes until Joe showed up and it was just talking about Joe.
Yeah.
Like there was nothing else.
And I mean, I do think this film has some exciting scenes, and we'll talk about them later, but I think this first act, and generally most of the second act as well, it's not bad. It's just, compared to something like...
It's subpar.
Yeah, it's just subpar, especially compared to, like, what King Kong was. I guess this film kind of, in retrospect, it kind of made me appreciate what King Kong was doing, more so than I necessarily have on previous viewings of the original King Kong.
On the topic of things just happening, this is also like something that I noticed. We have O'Hara and one of his men talking, and then they think, I'm pretty sure the idea is like, oh no, a lion's got loose.
Yeah, because they're hearing like the lions roaring and it's clearly agitated.
But it's Joe who, and this is, okay, so again, like the lack of setup, I think really falters this introduction for Joe.
Right. It's less lack of setup, lack of build-up really is what it is. There's a lot of build-up to King Kong. I mean, Carl Denham talks about, before they arrive at Skull Island, he talks about, well, we're heading to Skull Island and there's this legend of a King Kong there. And obviously we get the bit with the natives on Skull Island before we ever meet Kong and the sacrifice and whatnot. We get all that build-up to this legendary monster. Whereas here, we're introduced to him as a baby in the first scene, and then like maybe 10, 15 minutes later there's like a 30 seconds of build-up to his next appearance. But in saying that build-up is also more important for something like King Kong, because King Kong is this larger-than-life monster, whereas Joe is just a gorilla.
Here's my thing, though. Like, the problem I have with Joe here, specifically, why is he here? Why is he attacking the cage? Why is he releasing the lion?
I mean, it is suggested that it is like it's like the young family's property that they're on, or like the land.
But why would Joe have I doubt Joe has an understanding of property lines.
No, I'm sure he doesn't, but animals do have territory.
True, but why would he just let the lions go? You know, I think the idea here is like Joe's trying to get the lions out of the cages, but then that later just gets dropped whenever...
Well, it's more Joe's trying to fight the lion here, which I think makes more sense because there's a scrap bit of backstory where Joe's mother was killed by a lion.
But where's that? But if that was in here, so much there would be a reason to be like, yeah, get him, Joe. Like, there's 2 fights of Joe with lions, and both times it's just like, okay, so they just happen to be here, and that's why we're here. Like, that element is so important to explain the motivations of Joe's character. Like, I feel like including that would be a lot more beneficial, but this film is so scared to have anything remotely negative. And that's my biggest problem, is this film, everything in it's positive. There is no negative. Like the most negative things is the drunk people and the police. And that's it.
Well, there's also, I mean, you say that, but there are a lot of scenes of Joe being like exploited and abused, obviously by the drunk people, but also by like the wrestler that fights Joe. There's that one scene where they're trying to, like, Joe holds the cup, and if he catches the disc you throw, you'll get free champagne. And Joe is clearly like he does not like having all of these like discs being thrown at him. I think perhaps the reason it's not as dark is I think the Hays Code is definitely at least partially an influence for that. Very well could just be the whole reason why it's a bit more of a family-friendly affair compared to what King Kong was. The thing with the whole animal exploitation idea around this film, because that really, I'd argue, is what the film's about, is just, and I mean, that's also what King Kong was about as well, is the exploitation and abuse of this animal. And I think it should be more resonant with Mighty Joe because Mighty Joe ostensibly is just a gorilla. But at the same time, while this probably wasn't clear to audiences when this film came out, there's also clearly animals being not put in the best positions for this film as well. Like with the lions being agitated, the horses being forced to fall over, and even like a lion like being seemingly dropped. So like it's almost kind of gross to see that in a film that is about this topic. I know like one of the Planet of the Apes movies, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, that film, part of the reason why they decided on the CG mocap apes was because they felt it would be kind of gross to make this film about the exploitation and abuse of animals and be exploiting animals in this production. That is a big motivation behind that decision.
And I think to a certain extent, and like, okay, they could have done like Joe's saving the lions from captivity as well with like, if they cut the Joe's mother getting killed, like I feel like that's also an option of like, and that's not a foreign concept. We've seen creatures or animals before like that are more sentient confused as to why other animals are captured, right? Like that's an idea that's been used in film before. That's a viable option if you don't want to do the tragic backstory. And stuff like that is why it's like, why is this film so undercooked and doesn't pack the punches or explore its narrative more than it is? Now, that being said, I will say all the negative in this like intro to Joe, this is, I will say this, the animation in Mighty Joe is better than King Kong.
The stop motion looks incredible. It genuinely looks incredible. It's beautiful.
And it goes back, I've said this before, I'll continue to say it. As much as people praise Willis O'Brien had to walk so Ray Harryhausen could run.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, Harryhausen's animation is 1,000 times grander.
He surpassed his mentor.
O'Brien did. I'm sure Harryhausen would never say that, but I think it's obvious. King Kong is way more choppy than what we see with Mighty Joe. And once you understand that, you know, Harryhausen was the animator behind all this and Willis O'Brien was your, like, director, you really understand that, like, okay, like, you can see the Harryhausen style way more than the O'Brien style. The fact that they were compositing the stop motion with the human stuff. I mean, that's been done before, but like Harryhausen did that a lot. Way more than O'Brien did.
Every special effects scene is genuinely a complete marvel to look at and really masterful for the time. It's like no wonder this got an Academy Award. There's a lot of like beautiful Texas switches going on with the animals, where sometimes you'll have a real lion and then Mighty Joe will go in front of it and suddenly it's a stop motion lion, and then suddenly when he throws it down it'll transition back to a real lion. It's great. It looks wonderful. If you weren't watching this in like a pristine 1080p transfer, you wouldn't really notice it.
Now, another example of like really good, like seamless compositing and whatnot is I really got a chuckle out of when O'Hara finally is riding to see what's going on his horse, and Joe grabs him and like swings him. That was really funny. And like seeing the stop motion with O'Hara and Joe, and then the like back and forth between the actual actor and whatnot, it looks really good. And I that scene specifically is like Mighty Joe to me.
Mighty Joe's little Guanji style, proto Guanji battle with the Cowboys is cut short when Jill comes out to stop the Mighty Eight from killing Mr. O'Hara.
And I guess this is the one instance of like Joe seemingly is about to hurt somebody, but the fact that like he doesn't do that later on.
Well, he goes to attack the drunkards.
But this whole scene really stands out, I think, to the rest of the film until you get to the cafe rampage. After this, O'Hara and the cowboy go and find Jill at her ranch. This is where we find out the father is dead off screen, and they negotiate a deal for Jill and Joe to come to the States and be performers.
Yeah, I will say Robert Armstrong is very funny in this scene.
The Armstrong in this film especially has a really nice charm to him.
It really is just that larger-than-life performance that just makes it... He just chews up the scenery compared to literally everyone else.
We cut back to Las Vegas, right?
I think so. I mean, it's Hollywood pretty much, so it would be it'd be LA.
And so we get introduced to the cafe. And again, here we are we're jumping ahead. We're skipping the whole, like, getting Joe across. So again, like, granted, if I remember right, they did cut through that in 33.
Yeah. And I mean, that's fine.
That's fine. But, like, we do jump straight to the cafe's built, and it's opening night for the event. Again, King Kong-esque. But this is about 30 minutes in.
Mm-hmm.
This is where King Kong is concluding, right? So they essentially, in 30 minutes, consolidated the story of King Kong, and this is like what happened afterwards, almost. There's about 45 minutes that would be like, what if King Kong survived, and this is what we get.
I mean, essentially the next, like, 30 minutes of this film is just that, essentially doing that section of that, like, maybe like 5-10 minute section of King Kong before he goes on that full rampage.
Which I will say this, I love the cafe set. I think the cafe set's really cool.
Oh yeah, this place is really marvelous looking, especially with how the matte paintings are integrated with the real set almost seamlessly for like most shots.
I do think it's really fun. Clearly, they were trying to do something with this. Everybody that goes to this is drunk and rich. Like, that's what we see all the time is drunk people or people getting alcohol and they're rich. And I think that's really, really interesting. Definitely, I almost feel like there's a little bit of commentary there. The exploits of Hollywood or something, which...
That still links to the animal exploitation theme.
And while I was watching this, I also couldn't help but think, a film like this could never be made today. And it was like in the cafe scenes, we like see them like showcasing Africa as this savage, like.
Oh, right. Okay.
And I mean, that's what O'Hara says too, is like, I escaped cannibals.
Right.
No, you didn't.
Yeah.
But it's like, you could never, like, we will never see another film that tries to showcase like an exotic place like this. The world's like fully been discovered. You like, and to a certain extent, I think that's why like Mysterious Island movies don't work as much as they used to.
I don't think it's something that can't work in modern day, but it's just one of those things where, because we know more about the world than when this movie came out, it's like you just have to take these ideas in new directions. Oftentimes, when you're doing modern films with these sorts of ideas, it's just a shift in modern storytelling trends, really.
But I do think it's interesting, like the last the last Kong movie that followed the Kong concepts. The Kongcepts.
No one's laughing.
Was a period piece. It took place in the 70s.
Right.
You know, I'd love to see what a modern idea of like how can you do King Kong in the modern day? Not like modern filmmaking styles, but like the modern day. They did that in obviously like 76, but like that was 76.
Right.
Like, I mean, technology's changed.
I don't think it's that you can't, but maybe perhaps, as you said, it really is something that just works better set in as a period piece, because, you know, the last two King Kong reboots have taken it that way. Like 05 and Kong Skull Island, as you said, are both period pieces. Is a Disney Plus show going to be a period piece? Do we know?
So it's a prequel. So the book from 2004 is a sequel and prequel to King Kong 1933.
Oh, okay, right. Because it almost would be interesting to see a modern set King Kong see how that would take the story, really, now that you've mentioned it.
What if somebody found Skull Island and tried to look at it on Google Maps? These are the ideas I want answered. But Mighty Joe, they do try to, like, I don't understand. I guess it's just elaborating on the story. And perhaps it's just the simple fact of, like, they elaborate on the story sometimes and they don't on others. But they really hype up the reveal of Mighty Joe. And it's like, that would be cool if this is our first time, but like for the audience, it's not. So it really feels like they're trying to elaborate on like why this is so big in universe. But then we turn right around and it's like, okay, we already know this. We don't need to see them reveal Mighty Joe for a second time. Especially since it's literally just King Kong.
I mean, I think it's interesting to watch this because it is kind of important to see the whole audience reaction to Mighty Joe, but also how Joe and Jill are reacting in this situation. While Jill and Joe are seemingly nervous, they're generally pretty, maybe not comfortable is the right word, but they're not distraught or depressed by the situation here.
Right, it's the opening, like, excitement. You know, it's the happiness before it gets bad. Now, I will say I do find the tug of war kind of fun. Obviously, it's very exploitative, but like it is a fun thing to see. I don't necessarily like. I do think how they introduce all the wrestlers is funny because, like, these were all actual wrestlers. They got them to agree to cameo in here. But, like, it goes on for, like, a solid 2 minutes where they're introducing everybody and they're all showing off their, like, muscles. It's like, okay, guys, let's...
Oh, yeah. It's too long. But it is funny, and I think it does help to just... It does sell... Joe's strength and also just the comedic aspect of this sequence where you've just got these guys who are just like showing off their strength in increasingly stupid ways. Is it too long? Yes, but it is funny.
And then the tug of war is really fun. I love the stage that they have built for them to like use. I think the stage is really fun. I love the cafe sets. There were 3 of them made for the film. The full-sized one for all the actors, a miniature one for Joe, and then a lion stunt set for just the lions was made for this.
Jesus, a lion stunt set. That just sounds like, man, did anyone who worked with the lions kind of ever think about what this film was about?
Well, I know that they had the trainers like work with the lions for their stunts, but like one of them was like sliding a lion down like an inclined stage.
And as Jill tries to leave but is convinced to stay by Mr. O'Hara, 17 weeks pass by and her and Joe just become more and more depressed.
Yeah, and see, this is where I was talking, like, you could easily, like, villainize O'Hara, and they clearly are trying to do that. But then, like, after this, he's suddenly a good guy. Especially, like, without Jill being there. Like, we see O'Hara interact with the 3 drunk guys, and it's him defending one of his, like, people who works at the cafe.
Oh, yeah, who was getting sexually harassed by them.
So it's like you villainize him and then you immediately give him like a really good redemption and then continue that redemption cycle.
I mean, that scene in particular is fine. That's no problem. It's just the sudden change in him caring for the ape that feels really out of place because there's not any setup for it.
What he did to Jill in that scene, I think, was really good. I really like it. I wish we could see more of that. They end up drawing the curtains early on Joe for the 17th week because he's clearly uncomfortable. And then, like, people are getting grouchy. And that's why, like, they're like, it's these 3 drunk guys. And they're like, we're going to go get alcohol for Joe. Intercut between all this is the romance between Jill and our cowboy. Now, let me ask you a question. Because the next segment is the 3 drunk people torturing Joe with giving him alcohol and then, like, lighting him on fire and treating him horribly. Did you feel anything like this was somewhat similar to a 1986 John Guillermin film?
Oh, what? King Kong Lives?
Yeah, because there's 3 drunk guys that like pour alcohol and burn Kong's fur, and that's what gets him angry and breaks out of the rocks and goes on a rampage.
Until you mentioned it, I did not remember this scene at all. In King Kong Lives, I was like, "What are you bringing up King Kong Lives for?" I was kind of confused. I completely forgot about that.
I can't help but wonder if that, because like it's 3 guys, they're drunk, they're like putting alcohol on Kong, they burn his fur, and that's what gets him angry, and then he goes on a rampage. It's the exact same setup.
It's definitely very similar. I don't know if it could be influenced. I don't know. I can see that being something that's just independently, it's like, oh, it just happens to be the same as well. It's kind of funny to me that this whole episode is about Mighty Joe, but we've probably said King Kong at least just as many times.
But I almost feel like that's okay. After this, we get the rampage.
Mm-hmm.
The rampage is like a very long sequence. It's very beautiful.
Yeah.
There's like, it's very intricate. You've got the extras running on the full stage. You've got the lions on the lion stunt stage doing their thing. You have stop motion lions, stop motion people. I think at one point,
you have the real lion attacking like a stunt performer.
You have stop motion like sets falling apart that were all animated by Ray Harryhausen. Like, it's a very amazing scene.
Very intricate.
It goes on for a very long time. Way longer than, like, you would have expected this to go on for. So, this is, like, the most monstrous Joe gets. Now, do you want to take this time now to really talk about what we brought up earlier? Is this a monster movie? Do you want to take this time now to really dive into that?
Sure.
Real quick, I want to throw out something that I think is really interesting. Obviously, there's a 1998 remake that Ray Harryhausen approved. Terry Moore makes a cameo appearance in it.
Yeah.
RKO co-produced it. Disney's the one that mainly did it. Phil Tippett did the special effects on it. But that film is never talked about in the same context of Mighty Joe 49. It's still it's got people involved from the original film. It's got companies involved. It's a bigger budget. It's got people who are relevant. I think Bill Pullman's in it.
Bill Paxton. It's Bill Paxton.
Bill Paxton. Yeah. There's men in suit stuff. There's miniatures. There's CGI. There's animatronics. It's like got everything you need for it to be in the same conversation, but it's not. And the only thing I can think of is simply the fact that it did not have the King Kong 33 connections. But as we've proven here, Mighty Joe Young is in the same conversation as King Kong. But neither of those films are really like this one more so than 98. But this one in of itself is not much of a...
It's the King Kong story, but it's not King Kong. It's not necessarily a giant monster feature in that way.
It's almost just plain and simply a drama action movie, I would say, more so than anything else. Because Son of Kong, you could argue Son of Kong is the same size as Mighty Joe, but Son of Kong has actual dinosaurs.
I'm pretty sure Son of Kong is still a bit bigger than Joe.
But that film just makes more sense. There's more elements to it that make it a monster movie. Mm-hmm. There's a disaster element, there's an action, there's an adventure, there's a drama. It's a bad movie, but it has all of those genre elements that Mighty Joe just doesn't have. I
mean, another thing as well that we've kind of touched on it, but I don't think we've directly mentioned it on this discussion. What separates King Kong and Mighty Joe is also the fact that Mighty Joe comes from a real place, where King Kong comes from Fantasyland. He comes from Skull Island. Mighty Joe is just a gorilla from Africa. That's all he really is. Sure, that place may seem exotic, particularly in the 1940s, but people live there. It is a real place.
When you look at everything that's in Mighty Joe, everything could happen. Like a cafe like that could exist.
Yeah.
Joe as a gorilla could exist. Joe in that circumstance could exist. Jill could exist that way.
The most unnatural Joe is but besides his size is he's a little bit anthropomorphized. That's kind of it in terms of how fantastical he is. Which I think the fantastical element is a big thing for monsters, especially kaiju in particular. Well, sure, Joe and also King Kong are American creations, so their status as even being in the conversation as kaiju is already immediately put into some question. King Kong still shares that fantastical in much the same way Godzilla is.
I would venture as far as to say that Mighty Joe is like a cousin to Kong more so than like a direct blood relative. Like it feels more so like a side thing that like technically yes, but not really.
Yeah, and another thing as well on that sort of discussion of what sort of makes a giant monster or what makes a kaiju like a kaiju is also just the element, the connection to culture that these monsters have. Obviously, King Kong has his connection to the natives, and Godzilla has the Odo Islanders, which many talk about that as being something that's influenced by King Kong. And while I do believe that it's true, because there's an interview I recently rewatched featuring Kazunori Ito, where he talks about what kaiju are and how they're sort of perceived in Japan. And he mentions how his perspective as someone who was born in a more rural area where a trip to Tokyo used to be a whole day's trip at best. He was born in the same prefecture as Ishiro Honda. Kaiju in those more rural areas were seen less as just like these fictional monsters and more just these things that kind of just were and are in the same way that a yokai is seen. And so there's this element to culture and mythology, which you see in this isn't just like a thing exclusive to Japan or America. This is something you see in like the Aboriginal cultures of my country, Australia, with stories like the Rainbow Serpent and that sort of cultural connection. And that is just something that Mighty Joe does not have in any capacity, which is why I would really argue that while it is, of course, in the conversation and while it is a creature feature, it is not a monster movie.
So let me ask you a question, Rex. Because that's actually really... I love the fact you brought this up. So do you think that films that venture off of the idea of that, like for kaiju and whatnot, and like even in America, like Native American culture, there are creatures, like if you look at any like native populace, there's monsters. Monsters are a inherent ancient aspect of our culture. The mystery of monsters, the godlike capabilities of monsters. And films like Frankenstein helped create a new concept of monsters of when mankind went and created their own. You know, the idea of like Dr. Frankenstein has taken the power of God and created his own. You know, the idea of just like how Prometheus took the fire from the gods and gave it to mankind. I mean, the fact that that's a story from ancient Greek mythology, like the idea of taking the power of the gods and making it mankind's thing, like showcases that even that's not even a modern concept. That's all stuff that like has been thought of and has been written about in stories dating back hundreds of years ago, if not thousands of years ago. The idea of a kaiju being like a monster from ancient mythology, like we see that with Mothra, we see that with, I mean, even King Ghidorah in the original Ghidorah is like said to be a monster from eons ago. All of this is really interesting because like Kong has that, Godzilla has that, and then the only other deviation from that is the monsters that were birthed from mankind's arrogance, which in of itself is how characters like Godzilla were created, you know? Varan has a mythology behind it.
But I think something interesting, where those monsters that are made from mankind's actions, while some may lack a certain spiritual connection or cultural connection, that more ancient monsters may have, these oftentimes they still share similar thematically as these sorts of warnings against certain activities, because essentially, like, monsters were oftentimes moral stories to like persuade children not to do certain bad things. I mean, we talked about that when we were discussing yokai. Kazunori Ito mentions that in the interview I was talking about, where kaiju are often used as representations of a warning or a reaction from nature to show repercussions of our modern actions.
I don't know if I've brought this one up before. So I used to love looking into like cryptids.
Mm-hmm.
And Bigfoot, awesome. While Bigfoot is a cryptid, Bigfoot has a basis in Native American culture.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember in a documentary, it's called Finding Bigfoot. It's from like the 70s. It's really funny.
No relation to the Finding Bigfoot TV show.
I don't think so. It's like this guy had $2,000, went and filmed a bunch of like B-roll, and then he just narrated over all of it. And that's what this movie is. In it, he talks about in Native American culture, Native Americans would tell their children that Bigfoot, I mean, they didn't call it Bigfoot or Sasquatch, they had their own name for it, but Bigfoot would come at night and take children to eat them. So what would that do? That would lead children to not want to leave at night. That would make it so children would stay in their homes safe and sound. And that's one of those examples, you know? That's one of those things that like monsters, Bigfoot would have, you know? So all of that, like you're absolutely right about like the metaphorical or the warnings behind it.
On that cryptid note, even modern cryptid or more modernish cryptids are kind of like modern folklore, like the Mothman. Like the Mothman is just a modern folktale, essentially.
I mean, Chupacabra is not a modern one, but like that's got lore, that's got mythos.
Yes. Most cryptids do, generally.
And so that's, I think that's one of the beautiful aspects about monsters. This is a really interesting topic that like Mighty Joe Young's bringing us into, but it's just the simple fact. And I think one of the issues in my problems with modern Hollywood monster movies is they fail to understand the concept of like monsters are reminders or lessons or meanings that we take and we need to understand, you know, the fact that like, and I think Forbidden Planet tackles the idea of monsters really well. Monsters are from like a primitive subconscious part of our minds that's just nasty, you know. There's an analytic out there that like whatever you hear, you think of 10 times greater. So as an example, if you're sitting in a house in the dark and you hear like footsteps or some creaking or something, you're going to imagine something 10 times worse than what it actually is.
Yeah.
That's how monsters are birthed. You know, as a kid, I remember that for me, I would always run to my room when it was nighttime and like everything was turned off. And that was because for me, I always envisioned this like spider human that lived in the house that like if I wasn't in bed under the covers when the lights went out, I was dead. And like that's just something like I don't know where that came from. It's been there. That's something that I remember as a kid thinking and being scared of. And that's the beauty of a monster. You know, that was a monster that got me to go to bed, even if I didn't want to, but I was horrified. And I think a lot of modern adaptations of monsters kind of miss that point.
Yeah, I mean, that's something I've kind of been thinking about. I was reflecting on after watching the Kazunori Ito interview where he brought up Honda's connection and her birth being more from a more rural area. And I was thinking about perhaps maybe part of why, say, in Godzilla -1, something that I think you were kind of critical of, this was more like almost like your one complaint with the film, really, was that the lack of Odo Islanders in the film. While they're present, it's not that they don't exist. They aren't. Obviously, they aren't seen in the film. We're just told about their legends, but we never hear or experience their legends. So I kind of was thinking about maybe because Yamazaki's coming from a bit more modern of a perspective and perhaps also a bit less rural, coming from a less rural prefecture, I think. I'd have to double check where he's from. Perhaps that's why that sort of element is seen less in more contemporary monster features.
I think it helps add the mystery. You know, it comes down to the whole mystery of a monster. Monsters are inherently horror. Horror is built off of the unknown. The unknown is a mystery. And when you explain that stuff, the horror is gone. The mystery is gone. And the monsters are no longer monsters because they are understood and known.
Mm-hmm. I mean, perhaps it's also a bit of a response to also changes in just how modern storytelling is as well, to some extent, so you talk about the unknown, right? And while, don't get me wrong, the element of the unknown is still very much present in modern films. Modern film audiences also expect more in the way of explanations and things making sense in a way that's often I feel like I see more and more criticism towards that sort of mentality that modern audiences almost need too much to be explained to them, which is something I agree with. I feel like some films really spoon feed too much to the audience that really isn't necessary. So perhaps that element also contributes to a loss in the more mythological side to monsters as well and modern features.
To a certain extent, I do wonder if modern audiences are too concerned with knowing everything. I mean, look at society. We recently, a couple of years ago, had a pandemic, and everybody had to know everything.
Everyone is an armchair expert nowadays. More is how it is, whether or not you actually know what you're talking about or not. And I think that is definitely something that was seen in COVID-19, where with how divided, particularly in America, it was, with a lot of differing opinions around masks and whatnot. Everyone was an armchair expert on it. Like, oh no, the masks they're bad because of this thing, or they're not effective at all, or what. I mean, that's something that still persists to this day in like modern political debates around things like similar topics like vaccines.
There's people who say, I read the Wikipedia page on this movie. I don't need to watch it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is something that exists. That is something that...
And it's infuriating.
And they feel the need to say that they are an expert or that they're knowledgeable or they know what they're talking about. And they haven't even watched whatever film they're talking about. Everybody, and especially with the whole TikTok and Reels part of society where it's like you have 60 seconds to learn about something, and then that's what you're going to know. And that's what you're going to build everything off of, is that 60-second video where somebody threw out an analytic.
Right, yes, exactly. Without questioning anything about that analytic.
And it's a proven fact that analytics make people believe things more because it sounds like you know what you're talking about. You know, Rex, I don't think you or I are like actually like experts on kaiju, tokusatsu, giant monsters, Japanese cinema, film history. I don't think we're remotely that.
No.
But I do think we at least try to educate ourselves before every film we talk about. If we did this without any research, without anything, and we just talked about stuff like this and cut it up and put it on the internet, people would think we're the smartest people on the planet. I've had people think that I'm incredibly intelligent over basic knowledge of Godzilla films.
Right.
And like, I'm not trying to say that I'm super smart or super dumb here. You know, I'm not trying to be attention seeking. I'm just saying, like, that's what happens. You know, that is the occurrences that follow actions like that. And so you see a plethora of people who require that information. And the moment they're told that and they're given something to make them believe it is true, they jump on it and they run with it. And that's it. There's nothing else. Their mind is made. Whether it's world-changing information or it's how you sleep at night. You know, like, it doesn't matter what level of importance it is. People will do that. And so I think to a certain extent, people have to know the monsters. I mean, look at the world of fan writing, fan fictions. There's websites designed to create movies that don't exist. There's a website where there is a plethora of Godzilla titles that Google says are happening because of the AI search engine that are just BS, like numbers, names, plot synopses, characters that were created by people because people feel the need to have answers or have dreams of alternate realities or something, I guess. I don't necessarily understand that whole thing myself.
I mean, we're also, like, obviously we're living in the information era, while how long that's necessarily lasting is becoming more larger and larger question with AI. The thing about that is, like, we, as you said, information is just this commercialized commodity at the moment, just to be consumed, not really to think about, but just something to be consumed almost mindlessly. Like, how many videos do you get of movie ending explained, Godzilla's abilities, how to beat Godzilla, Ultraman lore videos, stuff like that is extremely common within, like, not just in kaiju communities, but in a lot of movie, TV, and all sorts of fictional entertainment communities. Yeah.
It is something that.
So there's just a shift in how we consume, how we view these creatures, entities, characters, all of it, I guess.
Yeah, and this all goes back to what I was talking about earlier, how I'd love to see how somebody could tackle a modern King Kong because of stuff like Google Maps. Information's out there on the world, on the globe. The globe has been 3D rendered. The globe has been driven around in cars that have cameras that record every 10 feet.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much documented information. I would love to see how somebody would tackle a modern interpretation of King Kong.
Mm-hmm.
You see, like, the world has evolved and changed so much with things like technology and information and weapons that monsters almost feel impossible. And we live in a society that requires the impossible to be possible. And I do applaud any creative who creates a creature that is plausible in the impossible. And because of the world we live in and the society that we all exist a part of, it becomes a rather difficult sequence of events to create monsters, because it used to be we could follow legends. Legends are disproven. I mean, look at the Loch Ness Monster.
Mm-hmm.
They have had people 3D render the entirety of Loch Ness. The only arguments is like there's some technicalities behind what the investigation did, and there's like people will make arguments for like, well, they didn't use this exact type of 3D rendering, so there's an inaccuracy here. Or
the interesting thing about the Loch Ness Monster, and what makes it really ironic that we're discussing the Loch Ness Monster in an episode around a King Kong related movie, is that the Loch Ness Monster's legend largely comes from King Kong.
I don't think I've heard this story.
Oh, basically, so not necessarily the first, but like the second Loch Ness Monster story. The first one to actually like properly describe it in anything that resembles like the modern plesiosaur like interpretation of the Loch Ness Monster came, I want to say it was about a month after the original King Kong came out, and the description of it matches exactly the Brontosaurus scene from King Kong to a T. So essentially, the modern legend of the Loch Ness Monster comes from King Kong.
Huh.
Because the sighting that came before it is like the most vague possible sighting. Like someone saw a creature and there's no real detail beyond that.
Really?
Yeah. The first in any way detailed account talks about a creature with like a long neck and like a sliding tail that was in the water, and its description matches almost exactly the Brontosaurus scene from the original King Kong.
Interesting. And see, like, in the context of like the Loch Ness Monster, like in modern day, it seems to be a general consensus of the bulk of what people see as the Loch Ness Monster is eels. I guess there's still like a little bit of the mystery that is yet to be solved, but here's the harsh reality. There's not going to be a plesiosaur in
God, no.
Loch Ness.
God, no.
And even though the world of cryptozoology is finding out if these creatures exist or not, the moment that they're proven wrong, the story is over. The legend is done. The mystery is gone.
I mean, the thing as well with cryptids and things like Bigfoot is that oftentimes a lot of these legends are there really is a lot of these things you can find if you look back into some of these legends. Like with Bigfoot, there's some legends of Bigfoots that really are actually really sad stories of just people being abused and turned into slaves and who have just been dehumanized and made into monsters by essentially cryptozoologists, and how they've decided to interpret these real life tragic stories in some cases. There's several with Bigfoot that are like that. Murders and rapes of sex slaves that there was a sex slave whom for years cryptozoologists claimed was a Bigfoot, whom was being raped by owners, and was having human Bigfoot hybrids. I know I just dropped something like really heavy and really weird and messed up there, but that, I guess that's kind of the thing with monsters like these is, I guess they really are just a deep, dark reflection of humanity, in a sense.
You know, I'm going to say this, and it's going to be really wrong because that's really deep. I'm about to pull us out of the deep and into the shallows. But I do think what you just said is very important. The idea of, in the modern day, people find anything to create a monster. And look at the marketing behind Mighty Joe Young. They marketed the film as basically another King Kong, but in all reality, this is not another King Kong. This is a gorilla who has been taken out of its natural habitat for the first time in 14 years, probably. And it is expected to perform tricks for rich, drunk
he's
people.
A circus animal. That's what he is.
He's a circus animal. Mm-hmm. And that
is a long-winded argument as to why Mighty Joe Young is not a giant monster.
He's only a monster by the people that try to force him into being one. But when you really look into it, Mighty Joe is not. This somehow made sense. That was a long explanation, and it somehow made sense. Where were we? What?
I'm trying to remember.
We finished up the rampage, so this is where we find out the cops. The cops are on to him.
Yeah. As much as they try to stop Joe's put back in a cage, and the courts decide that Mighty Joe is to be shot and killed. And from here, essentially, the rest of the film is our main cast's efforts to break the monkey out and return him to Africa.
Right. This is where we get the change of heart by O'Hara. And so he pulls a fake heart attack. They get the police away. They get Joe out. They put him into a truck. The police find out that it's a coup. It was a setup. And so they chase after our main characters, and O'Hara meets up with them, and they're all on their way. And basically the next 10 minutes is just this car chase.
And I think it's the most exciting part of the film.
which I highly attribute to the music. The music is what makes
the music is
car
great.
chase. Yeah.
But also, I just think it's the comedy and just how fun a lot of the reversals are too in this sequence.
Now, speaking of comedy, Ray Harryhausen did say that he felt like the push by Cooper to make this a comedy was not the right choice of action. What's your take on that?
I don't know. I think near most of the beginning bit, it's kind of hit or miss. But I think here is where it really shines because it almost feels it feels more like there's a serious story going on here, but it kind of comes across more as antics, like with the police just being kind of maybe not bumbling idiots, but being very easily like misled and misdirected by our cast. That it's really, really funny to watch.
Right. And then, of course, like you brought up, there's like various things. Like there's a guy that gets in their way and they steal his truck, and then they get stuck in a pothole, and O'Hara like risks his career and stops them for a little bit, and then the police get stuck in the pothole. It's a whole thing. And I do agree. I think this is a very fun sequence. But my one problem with it is as this sequence is like seemingly dying down, we then jump to the burning orphanage, which color tinted.
It takes an immediate nosedive once the screen goes red.
Yeah. No. In my personal opinion, the last essentially 11 minutes of this film, maybe 10 minutes. I think the last scene is about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes long. The last like 10 minutes before that is so it's not boring, but it's just so like abrupt. It's left field. It like throws you completely off. It's really good. Like the effects are really well done. Like the color tinted is a smart idea.
It really sucks how this just doesn't fit with what's been going on up to this point, because it's really beautiful looking.
Mm-hmm.
The red is so oppressive. It's gorgeous. That it sucks that it does not fit.
Yeah. It sucks because like the only characters here besides like the extras that are being rescued is Jill,
and
Greg and Joe. And so it's Greg and Joe saving people, Jill screaming, and just this beautiful miniature orphanage being destroyed as Joe has some amazing stop motion effects. And like the camera work like looks really good here. They really exercise. Yeah. It's all really well done. The superimposed or the composited fire throughout the sequence is truly amazing. Like this is the best effects besides the cafe rampage scene. The cafe rampage scene's better just because there's a lot more, but this looks so good.
It's beautiful. Which is why it's so frustrating.
Yeah. If somehow this was actually in the middle of the movie and like it just so happened they were like traveling and they came across this. Also, bear in mind, the police are not here helping because they're trying to kill Joe.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't help but think it's like, so the whole point behind this, the whole point behind the characters like being here is because the police are failing to do their job. Sans, like, I mean, they're still trying to keep the peace with killing Joe, but they're not protecting the public. And why are they not I feel like it would make more sense to have them show up and help out. Like, the fact that the police are completely omitted now. They are irrelevant when we were in a chase with them and they were trying to get out of the hole. We just have to assume.
That just made me think of, while not necessarily the best solution to this problem, a bare minimum way of actually setting this scene up at least a little bit could have been, so our characters have like a radio tapped into like the police's like channel. Why not just have like a report somewhere just like 5-10 minutes before this burning building scene, mentioning that there's like a building burning, like an orphanage burning? Why not just at least mention that?
Yeah. There's so much you could do to make it work. You could do that. You could have it, they're just driving by and it happens, but then like you should still have the police show up so they like ignore, like they can fight for why Joe should stay alive. Like, there's so much you could do.
Well, that's the idea, because the police do show up at the very end of the sequence. Yeah, they show up like right before Joe falls out the tree while he's got the one girl, and he's climbing up the tree with her.
Oh, that's right. Do they do anything? I don't think they do anything though.
Their car gets destroyed, and bear in mind, all they're doing in this scene is trying to kill Joe still. They don't really care about the burning building in front of them.
See, there's just so much potential there that they just lose out on. There's so much, like, I feel like this film, if it had a couple more rewrites, this film could be a lot better.
Mm.
It's really surprising that this film had like a year and a half worth of pre-production.
There is a better film in here. It's called King Kong.
Oh, yeah. There is. So we jump ahead. O'Hara's back at New York. They're like, oh, you're back? And then this is where we get it's a very charming ending, where Max has sent a video and he's shown it, and it's Jill, Greg, and Joe waving, looking at the camera, saying goodbye. And then we actually do get instead of the end as the end card, we get a goodbye from Joe Young, which is really cute. It's cute. Yeah. And that's Mighty Joe Young.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have anything you want to cover, or do you want me to? I have a lot of stuff from the Fallout I have some production stuff still. Do you have any more production information you want to provide?
Not particularly that I find all that interesting.
Okay. Well, there's some reports that this was filmed on location in Africa, but that's wrong. It was filmed in New York City, Niagara Falls, Florida, Scotland, Spain, Austria, and Italy, which is still a astounding set of places to go film for this movie.
Yeah.
Let's see here. The Joe models, the armatures, cost $1,500 each. There's a total of roughly $9,000 alone in the armatures, which is a lot of money. So bear in mind, I'm going to start establishing this. You have Cooper, Chodizek, Armstrong. You have Willis O'Brien. You have Harryhausen. You have a team of 47 technicians for the special effects. You have stop motion lions, men, horses, Jills. You've got 3 sets of the nightclub. You have multiple, 6 or 7 Joe models that cost, $1,500 to make. The production of the film started pre-production started in 1946, and that money had to go for 3 years. The film was released July 13th of 1949. It had John Ford attached. He definitely got some sort of payment for it.
Mm-hmm.
So you have all of that going on. you've got, even after, like, they were talking about doing a sequel. The sequel was planned to be Mighty Joe Young meets Tarzan, with Leland Lawrence setting to write, and it taking place in Africa. So, like, they were already investing into that as well. So by the time that the film came out, and the huge marketing push, but that the numbers for the marketing aren't known. The budget for the film was $1,800,000. That's, of course, adjusted for inflation. At least I believe it is. So that.
No, I'm pretty sure that's the original budget.
It is.
Because some of the other films Cooper was doing at the time were like 1 million, 1.5. Yeah, they were 1 million, and then they got slashed to 500,000. Some of the films he did between Son of Kong and Mighty Joe.
So $1.8 million. That's the budget.
Mm-hmm.
By the time this film came out, that budget was like horrible. When the film was released, it was the fifth. It was I believe it came out. It was the like fifth highest of the week. Yeah, it opened fifth place in the box office. Premiered on July 13th, 1949, and then it was shown in 358 theaters across America. So opening fifth on your first weekend is not good, especially when you're marketing a film like this. So the film had all of the money that was put in. It opened fifth. Bear in mind, by the end of the year, Mighty Joe Young was the 51st highest grossing film. This box office number is $1,950,000. So that would be $150,000 profits, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, apparently that marketing budget ended up making it lose money. So it ended up losing, the number I found was approximately $675,000. So $500,000.
Brutal.
Now, this ended up being the last film that anybody would allow Willis O'Brien to animate stop motion for, besides the Giant Behemoth. That was his actual last one, but this is one of his last films. So with it losing that much money, it was the fifth highest grossing film. It was the fifth highest grossing film for RKO this year. And RKO was the fifth highest grossing company that year. And I actually have the numbers for each company, just so you have an idea of how horrible RKO ended up doing this year. At number one, you had Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer at $46,150,000. That's how much it made in the box office. Number two, you had 20th Century Fox at $44,630,000. Paramount at $29,650,000. Warner Brothers at $23,350,000. RKO at $20 million. Columbia at $16,750,000. Universal at $14,500,000. United Artists at $7,600,000. Republic Films at $3,650,000. Film Classics at $2 million, and Eagle Lion at $1,600,000. So RKO is middle of the road. Out of the films that RKO released, it was like Mighty Joe was middle of the road. Mighty Joe Young ended up being the 51st highest grossing film of the box office that year. Bear in mind, the
brutal for what it was meant to be. God damn.
Yeah. RKO's largest film, and this really puts into perspective how poorly this did, was Joan of Arc at $4,100,000. Over half of what, or over double of what Mighty Joe Young made. So I think it's also important to note Joan of Arc, I believe, was released in 1948, like in December. So, not good. It's like you said, brutal. This film single-handedly should have put RKO in the top 4. So it's also important to note that around this time, they weren't really doing. At this point, they had kind of slowed down on their horror monster movie productions, right? Outside of King Kong and Son of Kong, their next venture was really Cat People in 1942. And then they continued that with I Walked with the Zombie in 43, followed by The Leopard Man, The Seventh Victim, The Ghost Ship. And then in 1944, they did The Curse of the Cat People. In 1945, they had Zombie on Broadway, The Body Snatcher, Isle of the Dead. Bear in mind, all of these are like horror thrillers for the most part. In 1946, they had The Spiral Staircase, and then Mighty Joe Young is their creature feature monster movie after that, which, as we've established, it's really not. And then after this, they would co-produce The Thing from Another World in 1951, followed by Killers from Space, and then From Earth to the Moon in 58. And then they'd co-produce a remake of Cat People in 1982. So, if that doesn't tell you that, like, they weren't really investing in anything that wasn't a Western drama or war movie or romance film, I don't know what does. But you did bring up something that this film did succeed in. And that is Mighty Joe Young won the Academy Award for Best Visual Effects. And then, if you don't mind, I actually went and did some searching for the history of creature features winning the Academy Award for visual effects.
Go ahead.
So the first time that this award was given out was in 1929, known as Best Engineering Effects. It was given out once, and then they held off. And then in 1938, it came back as the Special Effects Award. The first couple of titles, in 1940, The Thief of Baghdad and 1 Million BC were both nominated. Baghdad did win, and then it would be followed by Mighty Joe in 49, which it won. And then we would have in 1954, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea and Them nominated. Leagues did win. Forbidden Planet received one in 56. Journey to the Center of the Earth did in 1959. And then in 1963, it got rebranded as Best Visual Effects, which is what it is to this day. In 1963, Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds, another monster on the loose or animal on the loose film, was nominated. In 64, you had Seven Faces of Dr. Leo. In 1970, you had, and I only bring this up because of our heavy Japanese tokusatsu kaiju stuff. In 1970, Tora Tora Tora, which was co-directed by Akira Kurosawa at one point, and then Kenji Fukasaku won the award. In 1976, you had King Kong. In 1979, you had Alien, which won. In 1981, you had Dragon Slayer. 1984 had Ghostbusters. 86 saw Little Shop of Horrors and Aliens winning. 87 had Predator. 92 had Alien 3. 93 had Jurassic Park. 96 had Dragonheart. 97 had The Lost World, Jurassic Park, and Starship Troopers. Mighty Joe Young would receive yet again another nomination in 1998, but it did not win. In 2005, King Kong won the second of its Best Visual Effects awards. Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest, which features the Kraken, won in 2006. Transformers in 2007 was nommed. In 2011, Transformers Dark of the Moon was nominated. Prometheus would receive a nomination in 2012. Kong Skull Island would receive a nomination in 2017. Ready Player One in 2018. Love and Monsters in 2020. Dune, of course, won in 2021. Godzilla Minus One famously won in 2023. Dune Part 2 won in 2024, and Alien Romulus was nominated. There are a lot of films that were finalists that made like the short list, but they didn't end up getting nominated. Some of those that I wanted to highlight is Godzilla 1998, Jurassic Park 3, Clash of the Titans 2010, Pacific Rim, Godzilla 2014, Godzilla vs. Kong, and then Godzilla Kong: The New Empire. All of those were finalists that got on the short list, but then they never made it to being nominated. So that's all of the information I really had. Do you want to go ahead and slide into our final thoughts? We'll do cast and crew. We have a mailbag, and then we'll do our closeout and call it good.
Yeah, sounds good.
Rex, since I just went on a whole preamble about the Academy Awards, why don't you jump in for your final thoughts?
Well, Mighty Joe is... It's an interesting beast because while there's definitely a lot to like here, I think this is generally a pretty well-regarded... A lot of people, as far as I can tell, really love this film. But to me, it just ended up coming across as an inferior telling of the King Kong story, one that lacks the excitement of films like King Kong, its remakes, or even The Valley of Gwangi, a film which, while it came out after, this film seemingly takes some inspiration from the original 1930s story ideas for the original Gwangi project. And yeah, while it's a special effects marvel, ultimately it doesn't really do much for me beyond that, and its place as a giant among giant monster movies itself really only exists because of the film's close connection to King Kong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would wholeheartedly agree with everything you just said, Rex. I mean, Mighty Joe Young is a fun movie, right? It's fun and it's comedic. It has charm, but I do believe at the end of the day, the film also just is lacking any of the weight that the original King Kong had.
Oh, yes.
Especially with how basically all of our main characters are heroic and good, with very little like character development. They're all very static characters.
Yeah.
There's never really any repercussions outside of the cafe rampage sequence, and we see that it's just being rebuilt. Like you see a thing on one of the sets where it's like currently undergoing repairs or something. It's like, okay, so they're just rebuilding. Plain and simple. It follows the same concept of most Godzilla movies with how they tackle the cities after the fact.
Yeah, I mean, O'Hara doesn't really suffer any consequences from the disaster. Like his business is still generally, he doesn't have an A, but his business is otherwise going fine. It's not like he's going bankrupt or is piling up the lawsuits like Carl Denham was.
I mean, we even see that, like, even though he got arrested, he's out. Like, a couple months later, he was back in New York and he was fine.
Right.
It just, this film ends up just being a lot more shallow and a lot more, or a lot less interesting than Kong, or King Kong, and to a certain extent, Son of Kong. That being said, I do think Mighty Joe Young has a lot going for it. And it's definitely a fun movie if you're just looking for a child-friendly, fun afternoon film.
Oh yeah, if you're not like there's a lot of good here. Like again, as we'd already highlighted, the special effects are genuinely wonderful, and they really are the reason to seek out this film, just to see Harryhausen's beautiful work.
Absolutely. And, it's nice to see that he was given such an opportunity with his mentor and how well Harryhausen executed his first assignment.
Yeah. No, I was just about to say how really impressive this is for his first real feature work.
And eventually, you and I will tackle the Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. So I'm excited to see where our little Harryhausen journey will go with this duo before it goes back to being the Harryhausen annual lineup. So overall, it's been I've enjoyed this. Rex, we also have a ranking to do. Do you want me to run through the cast and crew real quick, and then we can...
Sure.
Okay. Starting with our cast, we have Terry Moore as Jill Young, who appeared in a couple episodes of Batman and Knight Rider, and as I mentioned previously, cameoed in Mighty Joe Young.
Was Laura she Catwoman in Batman? Out of curiosity? Did you know?
I don't think so. I don't remember. I think she was only in 4 episodes. So maybe if
could be Catwoman, because Catwoman was recast, I think, 3 times or something.
I think you're right. Laura Lee Mitchell played Child Jill. Ben Johnson as Greg Johnson, who appeared in Terror Train and Cherry 2000. Robert Armstrong as Max O'Hara was in King Kong, Son of Kong, and the Mad Ghoul. Frank McHugh played Wendy, who was in Mystery of the Wax Museum. Douglas Fowley played Jones, who appeared in The White Buffalo and Seven Faces of Dr. Leo. Dennis Green played Dan Crawford. Your crew includes Marion C. Cooper, co-director, story, and producer, who worked on King Kong, Son of Kong, and Dr. Cyclops. Ernest B. Shodizak, your co-director, worked on King Kong, Son of Kong, and Dr. Cyclops. Ruth Rose, the wife to Ernest B. Shodizak, worked on King Kong, Son of Kong, and She. Roy Webb, your composer, worked on Cat People, I Walked with the Zombie, The Leopard Man, The Seventh Victim, The Curse of the Cat People, and The Body Snatcher. Interestingly enough, he did not work on King Kong, but he worked on almost all of RKO's horror monster movies in the 1940s. And then last but not least, or not last, but one of our last ones, John Ford, the producer, did not work on any other horror or science fiction films. And then you have Willis O'Brien, your special effects director, who worked on The Lost World, 1925, King Kong, Son of Kong, She, The Animal World, The Beast of Hollow Mountain, The Black Scorpion, The Giant Behemoth in The Lost World, 1960. And that is our cast and crew. So, Rex, I believe we're down to basically 3 things. We've got our ranking, we've got our mailbag, and we have our closing statement. So let's go ahead and dive into the rankings here. We are tackling the extended Kong universe. So for this, we will be tackling all of the King Kong movies we have covered. So King Kong 33 through King Kong Lives, Mighty Joe Young, and Godzilla Kong, The New Empire. So Rex, what is your number 8?
Well, my number 8, and I believe we're going to agree on this one, because I think that this part of our list is relatively stagnant. But at number 8, I've got The Son of Kong.
Likewise.
And if I had to guess, it's probably followed up by, at number 7, King Kong Lives.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think this is where we're going to start deviating.
Okay.
So at my number 6, I have Godzilla Kong, The New Empire. It's not a bad movie. I think Son of Kong's a bad movie. I think King Kong Lives has its warrants. I think Godzilla Kong, The New Empire is a rather exhausting film, but it does have fun moments, and I do enjoy various aspects of the film.
Mm-hmm. I've got at number 6, 1976's King Kong.
That's my number 5. I was trying to figure out which one I wanted to put. I was debating on those. I just felt like at the end of the day, I enjoyed some of the effects work in King Kong 76 way more than I enjoyed various aspects of Godzilla Kong: The New Empire.
Mm-hmm. Right. And what's in your number... Oh, wait, you just said number 5. My bad. Sorry. Okay, my turn, I guess. Well, at my number 5... I'm kind of like debating this in my head still, even though I had this ranking already. My mind is going back and forth, but I think I've changed my mind from my original ranking. And at number 5, I've put Mighty Joe Young.
Okay.
Yeah. Whereas the number 4 spot, right above it, is Godzilla Kong: The New Empire. And I think what kind of seals it, Mighty Joe Young's spot below The New Empire for me is that for all the flaws of both films, Godzilla Kong: The New Empire, on top of being, I think, more rewatchable for me, frankly, Godzilla Kong: The New Empire isn't just a rehash of King Kong.
That's fair. That is fair.
For what the story is, whatever your opinion is on Godzilla Kong's story, it is a new story. It is not just an inferior retelling of a story that came out less than 20 years prior. So, yeah. I think I'm committing to that ranking.
Okay. So you did your 5 and 4, correct? So at my number 4, I have Mighty Joe Young. I think it was less exhausting than Godzilla Kong: The New Empire, which is why it is above that for me. I think I can sit through it a little bit more than I can King Kong 76, because King Kong 76 is rather boring at various parts. I appreciate some of the more technical aspects of Joe Young more so than I do King Kong 76. And so I was debating, honestly, I think the 4, 5, and 6 in my rankings almost could be moved around because they're so close.
Yeah.
I would go as far as to say, like, number 8 for me is bad. Number 7 is meh. I'm not going to go watch it, like, willingly. 4, 5, and 6 is, like, they're okay.
Oh, yeah. My 4, 5, and 6, I'm sure 5 years pass by, I rewatch all these films. I'm sure the ranking could very easily shake up completely.
Yeah. Yeah. And then from 3 and up, it's, like, good and great.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why I'm going to bring up my number 3 now, which I know we do not line up here. My number 3 is King Kong Escapes. It is way more fun than Mighty Joe Young, I think. I mean, I'm also just kind of a sucker for Honda, Shibuya, Tanaka, Toho,
Yeah.
Tokusatsu, Japanese content, you know, all that. And I have met one of the cast members of it, so it's like, yeah.
Oh wow! Nice flex there.
I'm a little biased towards the Toho stuff, but not nearly as much as you are, as you're about to prove.
Mm-hmm. I will say, I will put an asterisk on my number 3 spot that this film, and especially in this discussion, I've come to appreciate 1933's King Kong more. So while I'm putting it at number 3, I do kind of want to revisit it sometime soon. So maybe, who knows, maybe I'll finally be enlightened, perhaps. I will say, as we've covered these Kong and, I guess with Mighty Joe Young, Kong adjacent films, like following, like when we started covering the 70s King Kong movies, is when I started appreciating King Kong as a character more. So maybe now that I'm more, what's the word for it?
Enlightened?
Not enlightened. Just more. I can't think of the word at all. I'm
appreciative.
Completely blank. Sure, let's go with that. It's not the word I'm looking for, but let's go with it. More appreciative of the big ape. Maybe I'll find more to love next time. Especially having now seen just a film that I think is a vastly inferior. Just,
I think we need to watch Ngagi.
oh God! Oh God!
One day we will.
Oh,
just
dear.
not today or tomorrow.
Yeah.
Or next week.
Or next month.
Maybe next year, but probably not.
Yeah. I don't think so.
Oh. So what's your... I guess it's my turn. Number 2.
Yeah.
My number 2, King Kong versus Godzilla.
And I've got King Kong Escapes. Obviously, I love the Toho duology. I think they're the most fun.
And so your number 1, obviously.
King Kong vs. Godzilla. To be fair, there is a tad bit of bias with the second guy in the title.
Yeah. My number 1, King Kong 33. I'm a film snob. And with that, that's Mighty Joe Young. This episode ended up being way longer, but more conversational. I think we were able to dive into a couple things that like neither of us had really honed in on per se.
This is the most I've ever thought about what it means to be for a monster or a kaiju, what they really are, what it means to be one, which I thoroughly enjoyed.
Yeah, I've had a lot of fun here. So for anybody who's still listening, almost 5 hours in, thank you very much. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I definitely wasn't expecting it to be this, but there was a lot to really go over and talk about. So
more
maybe
than
you
either
guys
of us expected.
Yeah. So maybe you ended up learning something new. Maybe you ended up thinking about something you had never thought of before. Let us know. Send us messages what you think. You know, if there's any topics here we tackled that you just had never really thought about or talked about before, let's hear it.
Or any more insight or to the discussion on what it means to be for something to be a monster.
Absolutely. So, with that, Rex, I believe we are at a point where I have to say one thing.
And what's that?
Hello, I'm Elijah, and I have a Kaiju and Tokusatsu problem. Joking aside, I am Elisha Thomas. I'm a writer. I've written for GodzillaMovies.com, Kaiju Ramen Magazine, Kaiju United, and my writing has also been featured in the book Giant Bug Cinema, a Monster Kid's Guide from Bear Manor Media, where I wrote about Ghidorah, the three-headed monster. I've also been given the privilege to work with my good friends at Giant Monster BS on their second season as a creative consultant, covering independent kaiju films. Outside of writing and podcasting, I also served as a consultant on the Titanic Creations Youngari figure. Go to titanicreations.com/Youngary to order yours today. I've also had the privilege to produce bonus features for SRS Cinema. I have worked on Yuzo, The Biggest Battle in Tokyo, Liverleaf, War of the Ninja Monsters, Zeiram vs. Gora, Hoshi 35, Outer Man, and a long list of titles coming soon. You can order these Blu-rays on srscinema.com. I'm also a filmmaker and YouTuber. You can check out my stuff on my YouTube channel, ET13 Productions, where you can see some of my short films and my old YouTube videos, along with an ever-growing playlist that features all of my appearances on YouTube. as a quick side note, I guess I haven't really talked about it, but stay tuned as I have my first feature film gig. Not necessarily the full film, but I am directing a segment titled The Amity Q in the upcoming SRS Cinema film, Amityverse Endgame. So that's really fun. I have that coming out, and I'm excited. It should be available on Blu-ray, I believe streaming, and maybe on DVD as well. You can also check out my action figure photography on my Instagram at et13_productions and my X, the artist formerly known as Twitter, thanks Danny, at the same handle. Now Rex, where can people find you at?
Well, dear listeners, you can find me on YouTube at Rexino, on Twitter at Rex_Xenomorph, and on Instagram, Rex_Xeno.
And as for the podcast, before we dive into our sign-off, we do have a piece of mailbag. This is from YouTube. It's on episode 100. Everything is wrong with Zillafoot 2021. Bivinsky3199 said, I'm all for Zillafoot 2 being made. It could be put on Indiegogo. There is no possible way the sequel could be worse. And I agree. Maybe one day. Maybe one day Zillafoot 2, the happening will happen.
I'd argue, well, literally everything is wrong with the film. I believe it's always possible for things to be made worse. So
this is true.
I'm sure if someone tried, they could make Zillafoot 2 worse than the original.
Just imagine if they wait about 20 years and they make it, and it's really and honestly just the second half of the movie condensed into 30 minutes, and then they elongate a 5-minute sequence to 45 minutes, and then just kind of throw in this wild conclusion.
Hey, wait a minute.
Huh. Don't forget to rate us on iTunes. That boosts our ratings and helps us get recommended to more people just like you. If you don't have an Apple device, which I don't blame you, I don't, that's a lie. I'm using a MacBook to do this podcast. But you can rate us on Spotify. To stay up to date with all things Kaiju Conversation related, head over to www.kaijuconversation.com to find all of our episodes, social media, news, and updates. Follow us on Twitter at KAIJU_CONVERS. If you don't have Twitter, you can follow us on Instagram or like us on Facebook. If you're like me before podcasting and you don't have any social media, lucky you. You can email us at kaijuconversation@gmail.com, all lowercase, all one word, you know the drill. And as always, we'll read your reviews on air for everyone to hear. We also have a Teespring store. Eventually we'll have original artwork on there, but until then you can sport our awesome logo on a t-shirt or maybe even a coffee mug. If you'd like to chat with us, check out our Discord server full of others that have similar interests to you. Recently, we had a discussion about the Kamen Rider Kuga cast reunion. It's a great community full of great people. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you can be notified anytime we upload a video. We sometimes post exclusives to the channel like bloopers for episodes or minisodes talking about news or other subjects. A huge thanks to Rex for editing all of these episodes and the other content we upload. His links can be found in the description below. Along with Rex, we'd like to give a huge thanks and shout out to Danny DeManna of the Godzilla Novelization Project for his amazing vocals on our theme song. You can support him by following him on Twitter at Danzilla93_GNP or visit his website, GodzillaNovelizationProject.com. And a huge thanks to Gretton Conwell from the podcast Giant Monster BS for composing the music for our theme song. You can support him by following the podcast on Twitter at Giant Monster BS or on any podcast platform under the name Giant Monster BS. And with that, we're going to wrap things up here. So thank you guys so much for listening. Mighty Joe Young is out and in the can. Another Kong-related film. We are about to come up with some great kaiju movies. G-Fest is coming up. It's going to be a great time to be a listener of the show. So thank you guys so much for listening. And thank you, Rex, for putting up with me for another episode.
My pleasure.
Next episode, it's going to be 120. I feel like we just celebrated 100 and we're about to do 120. Yeah.
Right.
It has been a long, long journey. But thank you all for following us.
Can't hurt me.
Thank you for following us on this journey. It's been a lot of fun, and there's more to come. We are not done. We are not over. So thank you guys, and as always, please remember, life's too short to not talk big. Bye, guys!
Bye.
We are set, we are in debt, there's nothing to sweat. Life's too short now, baby. Kaiju, not too big now, baby. Conversation. His name's Elijah, baby. And also Rex now, baby. We love those kaiju, baby. And you will too now.